mean, I'm already recording, so we're good to go. We're using one microphone. Usually I have the whole studio, so I'm using Mom's Yeti. Mom uses this one when we do the Discord one, but I don't know what number this is. I think this is podcast 85. Wow. We might be. We've been doing a lot. Yeah, we might be on 80 by this time. Yeah. That's a sign of yeah, what are the odds? So just because I've been backlogging them all week since I'm home, my viewers know that I'm home. But this is a big one, Pops. This is one I've been waiting for, kind of since I started. So, I did the one with Dad back in December. This is my dad's dad, my grandfather, who has maybe one of the... So, you know who Drake is, right? Drake's the rapper that owns Toronto. Yeah. He's got a song called Start From the Bottom, right? Which is basically the story about starting from nothing, coming to something. And you're kind of the definition of that kind of person, I would say.
I guess I can cop to that, yes.
Yeah. So, again, if the audio is a little wonky, I apologize because we're using a open source mic. But we're going to try and get as much in as possible. We have dinner reservations, so we might have to do this in parts. But the way I wanted to do this was kind of like how I did with my grandmother, which is I want the starting point to where we got to now. And, I mean, there's been a couple books written about you now, which is amazing. And there's a reason for that, and I would love to hear you explain that. Now, I know the story, but I want the full detailed story for this one.
Well, it's a lot of pressure, but I think I can handle it.
There's no pressure.
We'll have some fun.
Yeah.
Let's have some fun.
So can we literally, I'm going to be asking a lot of questions.
From the beginning?
Yeah. So I'll probably stop you when I have some questions, just because I'm going to try to keep the timeline going, and then explaining like who's who when we start using names. So, yeah, please take it from like how you grew up, brothers, all that stuff.
Well, thank you. Thank you for asking me to do this. I'm honored, and I'm honored that you're my grandson.
Oh, thank you.
All of you both. You asked about the starting point for me in life. Well, I always thought I was a very blessed person in that I had a wonderful family, grew up in a wonderful neighborhood. I grew up in Little Italy. I was born in the 1930s, which was right during the Depression.
Way to date yourself, Pops.
Well, you know, I'm proud of it. But it wasn't a great time for the United States. The Second World War was coming. There was all kinds of difficulties. And my grandparents immigrated from southern Italy, as did many, many Italians during that era. And we all kind of clustered together. We lived in the same neighborhood. We went to the same schools. And I had lots of aunts and uncles and cousins. And the Italian families get together on holidays. So we grew up together.
Right. So when you say aunts and uncles and all that stuff, biological aunts and uncles, or are we talking? Because you come from a big family, as we were talking about.
Big family. And I had uncles on my father's side. There was 4 uncles there. Right. And I had grandparents from Italy. And they came from Bari, B-A-R-I, Italy, which is on the west southern coast. And my grandmother and grandfather, my mother's parents, were born near Naples, which is another area that lots of Italians came from in that day.
So, to your family though, because you were telling me before we started, your grandfather owned a trucking company, and then your dad kind of did that same thing. Was that kind of like a family business?
Well, you know, he came over as an immigrant, and he was trying to make a living as they all were. And he got involved in delivering ice. They used to deliver ice in those days. I know you don't know what those are, but there was a time when there was no refrigerators.
Yeah.
And if you didn't have ice, you had rotten food, and you got sick. So he was a very valuable man, but he was an entrepreneur in that he had a family, and he had a business, and he impressed my father, who was a guy who... was going to find his way in this new country, and he followed him and became a truck driver, and eventually he owned his own business.
So that's what your dad did? That's
what my dad did. My mother, who was, had the family to run, she had 3 boys. We were born in the 1930s, 1937, 38, and 39 from my brothers and I.
And you're the oldest.
And I'm the oldest. And she worked in a greeting card factory. So everybody kind of worked in those days. And we We did lots of.
Really? I didn't know. I didn't know your mom worked.
Yes,
I always figured that it was kind of the old family values of like father works or husband works, mother stays home, takes care of the kids. So it wasn't like that.
No. Mother worked and took care of the kids.
Gotcha.
And she was marvelous at that. So they were both very young. They met as teenagers. They got married early, and we thought we were a blessed family. We actually lived on the street that goes into the Holland Tunnel. And that may not mean anything to most people, but if you live on that street on the 4th floor, as we did, all you hear all night is trucks and cars rumbling their way into the Holland Tunnel.
Being a truck driver for your dad, did you see him a lot? Or?
Oh, yeah, he was home every night.
Wow.
At 5:30. He was he started out as a union guy, and he worked his hours, came home, and we all had to sit together for dinner. My mother always had dinner prepared, and we sat quietly and ate dinner. But we sat quietly because he loved music, and he loved jazz music and all the music of the day. And because of that, I learned a lot about music, and I'm very fond of music. But it came from my father.
Really?
And he was a great influence, and he read the newspapers at night, so he learned that way. He wasn't a man who did not want to learn, and he always had this goal that he was going to own his own business someday. And so he'd do the crossword puzzles from the newspaper, and he would leave one or two little words out and give it to me to show me how to do crossword puzzles.
So how old were you around this time?
I was preteen, maybe 8, 9, 10. And I was in school. I was in the public school system because public school was nearby. We lived in Greenwich Village. It was virtually all Italians on one side of Greenwich Village, and a lot of the counterculture people lived in Greenwich Village.
Right. So growing up, you were how many? You said it was Little Italy and all that stuff. So pretty much your whole life, were you just surrounded by Italians?
Surrounded by Italians.
Nothing else really?
No. In junior graduate, when I went to school, it was all Italian children in the class, and it was a public school, and we walked to school, and I happened to enjoy school, and I liked to read, and my father encouraged reading, and it so happened that the teachers took notice of me, that I was very interested in my work. And one of the important things that happened in my life was that two of the teachers called upon my parents and said, your son is in the wrong grade. He belongs about 2 grades higher because he reads a lot, he writes, he pays attention. And so they skipped me. They used to do that in those days.
So what? Yeah, right.
So I went from the 3rd grade to the 5th grade.
Wow.
And the school ended at the 6th grade. It was a grammar school. So, but I read a lot. I had my own books. My father bought some encyclopedias that they sold in the supermarket.
Right.
And you get one book every week if you spend so much money. So I studied, and the teachers called my parents and said, you have to really be careful where you send him to school. He just doesn't go to an ordinary school. And I say this because I have a very fond memory about teachers in my life and how important they were. And I eventually became a professor and tried to do.
We'll get to that.
Similarly.
Yeah.
So there was a program in those days where you went into the 7th grade, 8th grade, and 9th grade, and you did it in 2 years. So you did 3 years of study, and you took subjects that, like my brothers didn't take these same subjects, but I took algebra. I studied French. We studied science. So I was like 11, 12, 13 years old, and my schooling was a little different than just a neighborhood school.
But Papa, when you moved from when you were 2 grades up,
yeah.
How were were you still top of the class, or were you just kind of?
Well, they didn't have as much to do about rankings and stuff, but I was one of the better students.
Right.
I participated in class whenever we had to give a little talk. When I graduated from from the lower grade school, I was the top boy in the entire school, and I won a medal from the Daughters of the American Revolution.
Wow.
They gave a medal to the top boy in the school and the top girl. So I was picked out by these teachers, and that helped me throughout my life, because I could just imagine if I stayed in schools that were so far beyond what I could handle,
Right.
I might not have had as much opportunity to do the things I did in my life.
So, we know smarts only gets you so far, right? So, what kind of person were you in high school? Like, in the sense of outside of school, would you say you were? I don't know if above the rest is the right word, but kind of like more mature for your age.
Yeah,
you were.
I would. I'll tell you how I got there and what I did. Today I'd probably be called a nerd, because I actually studied. I paid attention in class. I studied for my exams. I read the assignments, and I enjoyed school. But the teachers recommended to my parents that I go to a really good high school. When I got to high school, there were two schools at the time and they're still in existence. Stuyvesant High School was one of the best mathematics schools in New York City at the time, and it was Cardinal Hayes High School, which was way up in the Bronx near Yankee Stadium.
Yeah.
And so I took the test for Cardinal Hayes High School and Stuyvesant, and I made Cardinal Hayes High School, and it was a very important choice for me. I had to take the train from Greenwich Village down on West 4th Street to way up in the Bronx, 149th Street, every day, and then get home at a decent hour. And so I studied on the train, but I went to the class, and I spent 4 years at Cardinal Hayes High School, and I never missed a day of attendance.
Really?
I had a perfect attendance, and I kept that throughout my life. I was very interested in making sure I showed up. There's a famous comedian who says the most important thing in life you can do is just show up.
Yeah.
Well, I studied subjects that my brothers didn't study, and a lot of the other people I grew up with didn't study. I studied Latin. I studied algebra and science. My foreign language was Italian.
Were you someone that would study like things that weren't even in school?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
You
I
were
like
a
to
nerd.
read. I like to read. I was on the train, remember, and on the train I could read.
Right.
And there was one teacher who said, if you read one book and you do it well, you're going to get this kind of a grade. But if you read more books, I'm going to give you a higher grade based on the number of books you read. Mm-hmm. And like I read 6 books instead of 1. So I was interested in my grades. I was very, very fond of the whole school.
Can I ask you something about that? So would you say that you were more grade oriented or were you knowledge oriented?
Well, I kind of was both. I wanted to do the grades, but I really was I just really wanted to learn things. Yeah. And so the teachers said do 2 books. I'd want to read 3 or 4 books. And I was in a couple of clubs. I was on the debating society, which taught me a lot about how to debate with people. And we went to one debate where we had to take both sides of the argument, which people don't do nowadays. Yeah. It was, should we invade Red China? Now you took yes. You took an hour doing that, and then another hour saying no. And I learned a lot from the brothers, and they were all brothers and priests teaching these subjects. Right. And they were really very devoted. I wrote for the high school newspaper, and I just enjoyed all about my school and high school. That school was put together by the Archdiocese of New York, and they did so much work on making it one of the finest high schools in New York City, right. And it still is today. They won the football championship this year.
Do you still follow your high school sports?
Follow the high school, but because I was very interested in sports, right. I was the sports editor of the newspaper.
Were you an athlete?
No, I did pick up basketball and everything. I wasn't a really big, tough guy. I was very thin. I was tall. I was thin. And so I played a little basketball, but not on the school teams because we had 3,000 students
Oh, wow.
in that school. And we had guys who looked like they were married, on the basketball team. They were
Full beards and
yeah, I know. And I was this little, skinny guy. So I just enjoyed everything about the learning, the after-school activities, the travel up and down from Little Italy all the way up to the Bronx and back every night didn't bother me.
I mean, that basically makes you an adult right there.
Yeah,
Because I remember when I was doing the training for high school, I mean, I feel like it kind of wakes you up like, hey, if you make a mistake here, you could be getting kidnapped.
You're in Brooklyn, you're in the Bronx, someplace. But we had guys like the Yankee Bat Boy was in our class. I remember his name, Joe Carrieri, and there was a book about him, and it was just a kind of a fun thing. There were no girls in the school at all.
Wow.
This was an all boys school, and when we ever had an event that called for getting girls, the Catholic school girls in the community would do it in. So I studied Italian. I picked that as my language. And they used to have an Italian night once a year. And this Italian professor would say, we would sing we learned the opera, we learned dancing for the show. That was a 1-week show. But I learned so much about music and the opera and things like that, and I became pretty studious about those things. And he said one thing that I remembered well. He said to the Italian class, he said, before you die, you must see the Amalfi Coast of Italy. I didn't know what he was talking about. It just stuck in my brain. A couple of years ago, with my wife, I went to the Amalfi Coast in this.
I remember you told me we were
right.
at your house at Christmas.
And he was absolutely right. It was to see the birthplaces of my great-grandparents and my in-laws, et cetera, et cetera. So high school, a huge success. And I was going to go to college, of course. My brothers did not go to college. Nobody in my family went to college. I was the only one who really went to high school and college. Yeah. And I wanted to go to St. John's College, which is down in Brooklyn. I lived down in that area, near Greenwich Village. The priest who was heading up the college programs, he said, no, you can't go there. He said, you got to go to Fordham University. That's the best university around here. And I said, well, that's what he said. Fordham was another half an hour up from Cardinal Hayes High School.
Right.
So it was like an hour and a half each way to go up to the Bronx. But it was probably one of the greatest things that happened in my life.
So that's why when I talk, a little side note, when we talk about Fordham on the podcast, because it's come up a couple times, you're the one that kind of started the legacy of Fordham. Yeah.
There was nobody in my family who talked about or knew anything about Fordham. But I went to Fordham and I just fell in love. And we didn't board in those days. I came home every night. And the first day of class was the first day I saw the campus. Right. That's the way it worked. You just went to college. It wasn't a big deal. We're going to take you up there. We're going to make sure you like it. No, my parents said, okay.
Like, there you go.
And oh, by the way, my grandmother had a summer home up in Elmsford, New York. And I was about 14 years old. And I started caddying on the weekends and caddying during the summertime. And I made money so that I could pay my own tuition. So I paid my own tuition in high school and my own tuition in college. My parents paid no tuition.
Do you remember what tuition was back then?
Well, it was $10 a month for high school, but it was like $500 a semester for
college.
So
I wish
it was
like that.
But in those days, that was a lot of money.
Yeah.
And my parents didn't have that kind of money, and I just paid my own tuition. Right. The schooling was fantastic. There were two things a couple of things that happened to me when I entered Fordham. I didn't know what I was going to do. You didn't have advisors to sit down with you. Right. You should do this. So I took liberal arts because it sounded really good.
That's what I did, yeah.
I took liberal arts and I got English and I took Latin and the sciences, of course, and philosophy. So it's, you could become a priest or become somebody else, but I took that kind of a program, a Bachelor of Arts. But I also signed up for the ROTC, the Reserve Officer Training course. That was as important as anything I did in the academic world at Fordham because you did more military training than any other thing you
Right.
did in college. My parents didn't have very much of an idea what college was all about, so I did all of the signing up for the courses and stuff like that, and paid the tuition. And I signed up for both ROTC and regular liberal arts training. I just loved everything. I loved everything that happened at Fordham.
You were someone that was like involved in every
I
single.
was involved, but I also I worked on the weekends as a waiter and a busboy, so that I could pay my tuition. And so the important thing was I got a tremendous education in liberal arts and values. It was a values-based program where you learn to be a good person.
Right. So, real fast for our viewers, for those of them that don't know, Fordham's a Jesuit college.
Exactly.
So I went to a Jesuit college as well. I went to Scranton, as you guys know. You basically have the four pillars: value, family, right? So Fordham's kind of the same way.
Exactly.
So you have a little bit more of those core values that you won't get from non-Jesuit schools.
Exactly. The Jesuits are known for their scholarship. They teach in many of the Catholic universities in the United States are Jesuit universities,
Right.
and they brag a little. I think the Jesuit universities are the best. I taught at Fordham University in New York for many years in the Graduate School of Business, and it still maintains that values of education and morality.
It hasn't changed in 100 years, yeah.
And you always took theology. You took theology. You learned a lot about your religion,
philosophy,
and I coupled that with my military training. And I started at 17 years old and doing all of this, and I was just so thrilled. And I joined the ROTC, of course, and I used to walk through the Little Italy neighborhood on Wednesdays, and they used to make fun of me because I had to wear my military uniform, and there was nobody down there. Yeah. Who is this guy in that uniform walking around to get home, and how to get back to where we lived? So in any event, the event that changed my life happened at Fordham when I was 17 years old. You didn't know that. This is sort of a secret. So at 17 years old, I was, going to college. I was working. I was just coming out almost as an adult, learning all kinds of things. And my grandmother owned a little cottage in Elmsford, New York.
Right.
And we used to go up there to Elmsford and caddy and make some money for our tuition. Mm-hmm. And so we got to know a little about, Elmsford. And one Saturday night, the guy who was my best friend at the time, they're having a dance at the Elmsford High School. How about we go up there and maybe we can meet somebody? I said, okay, great deal. So I'm 17 years old. I walk into this dance at Elmsford High School. I don't know anybody in the school. They're dancing away up there. And I see this girl. I said, oh my God, she's gorgeous. Dark hair, brown eyes, dancing away. I said, I have to ask her to dance. I asked her to dance, and she was like, I don't know this guy. He's not from the high school. And her name was Marie. Let me scroll back a little. I spent my whole life with Marie.
Yeah.
She was my bride. But how did I get there? Because everybody in the school wanted Marie. She was the captain of the cheerleaders. She was in the school play. She was in the arts. She did everything. And she was gorgeous. And the captain of the football team wanted to date everybody. And I go and ask her to dance, and she says yes.
So you and Grandma didn't go to the same school at all. So this was just out of pure
chance. I just
chance.
walked in. It was God's will.
God's will.
I walk in, and I'm in love.
Oh, yeah.
Totally in love. So we have a couple of dances, and I learn a little about her. And she leaves with her girlfriend, and my friend and I leave. And I'm lost. What am I going to do? About a month or so later, there's another dance at the school. This guy says,
Now you're going to every single one?
why don't we call the girls and ask them if they want to go to the
Right.
dance? So I called from my phone down to Little Italy. You know, I didn't want my parents to hear it, you know.
Right.
And I call Marie on the phone, and I asked her to the dance, and she says, yes. I was tired. I couldn't believe it. We go to the dance again, and I'm falling in love even more. Everything about her was gorgeous.
Right.
She was sweet. She had a great disposition. She laughed, and I was stuck. I was in love.
So, crap, I kind of lost my train of thought, but basically, so you went into college as kind of like, you wanted to be a priest, to my
I
understanding,
started
right? And
out
that's what
thinking,
changes.
you know, when I was going to Fordham, I was thinking about maybe I would become a priest or whatever. But I met Marie. The priest went away, and I started to date her. And after about 6 months, 9 months, I was just totally in love with her, and I wanted to go steady. That was the big deal. We started her.
Whoa.
She said no. She said no. She said I want to go to my senior year and my junior in high school. She was a high school girl. Now I'm a freshman.
Right, you're a
in
freshman,
college.
so it's 1 year apart.
She says I want to go there, and I don't want to be involved with anybody. I just want to go and enjoy myself. And so in effect, she said, we're going to have a breakup. And so I talked to myself about committing suicide.
Yeah, you go through all the worst.
I held back.
We've all been there.
and she went to the, while I was at, she was away, and going away, I said to her, you know, there's a dance at Fordham that I'd like to take you to, if you don't mind. It was the Fordham Military Ball.
Wow.
And she had no idea what that was, but I guess maybe to get rid of me, she said, okay. So she goes down to Washington. She has fun with the guys. I figured, you know, she forgot me, and I called her and I said, this is Bill. She said, oh, I remember you, you know.
Papa, how long has it been since you've seen her? From this point, do you remember?
Yeah, well, it was months.
Wow.
You know, but that was my card. I had to play that card, which was to get her to that dance. You know, I said, you mentioned. I remember I talked to you about the Fordham Military Ball. She said, oh, I remember. Are you still going to be my dad? She said, here were her words. I made a promise, and I'll keep it.
Wow. Good on Graham.
So I took her to the military ball. I have pictures of her inside there. She was like a model. She was gorgeous. Now remember, I'm talking about a girl who was like 17 and a half, 18 years old. And she was my date at the military ball at Fordham. And that was a spectacular thing.
Right.
I was scared out of my mind because there was a big snowstorm, and my father said, I don't think you should drive in this snow tonight with the car. I was borrowing his car. Are you kidding? This is my date with Marie, and I'm going to get knocked out.
Do this weekend?
You know? So I talked to her parents, and my parents said, I'll be very, very careful. We went to the military ball, and after that, we started dating.
Right.
We were together over 66 years.
God.
After that.
I still remember the 50-year anniversary. You remember that, the castle?
She was everything in my life.
Yeah.
She was the reason, what they call the raison d'etre. She was the raison d'etre. Everything that I saw in her as a young woman, she grew up into be this unbelievably fabulous wife, mother, inspiration, everything.
Right.
But I didn't know that. All I knew was that we were dating again. And we started dating, and I worked at the country club as a busboy to play my way. I wrote for the college newspaper. I was in all kinds of activities, but dated with Marie, and she was my girlfriend. And then the big deal was we were going to go steady. You know, that's the big move. And so we started to realize that there were a lot of things in common, our values, our family, what we liked to do, what we didn't like to do. And I was from New York City, so I was like a big shot.
Right.
I took her down to New York City to a play. I did things like that just to impress her, and I did.
Right.
She was impressed. But that wasn't all. We went to church, we went to Mass on Sunday together, and things like that. And then all of a sudden, it comes time, and I'm going through my Army training. And part of Army training is, classroom training. There's also Army drills, and there's also 2 segments where you have to go down to an Army base for 8 weeks.
Right.
And if you don't pass, it's intense Army training, and they're trying to find out if you can be an officer.
Right.
So they get you up at 5 o'clock in the morning. You're on the firing range. You're doing all kinds of
Can I
stuff.
pause you for 1 second, Paul?
Yeah.
I'm just a little confused as to where we are in the timeline. Are you a sophomore? Are you a junior?
Yeah. In the junior year, I did that. So in the sophomore year.
So you've been dating Graham
Yeah.
from end of freshman year to, well, at least this point, junior
Yeah.
year, right?
Yeah, and we're getting more serious, as they say. And by the time we were a junior, I'm getting ready for, it was Fort Bragg, North Carolina, where we had to go, and I had to prove that I was strong enough, had the mental agility and the physical ability to be an officer in the Army. And I passed the test because they do everything they can.
Right. Now this, just to make sure, so this isn't just regular like ROTC
No.
training. This is, we're going to the next level here.
Yeah,
Right.
that's part of ROTC, but ROTC isn't just classroom training.
Right.
You
You have
got to
to do
go
the
to
actual
2
military stuff.
segments of intense training in foxholes. Remember, you're going to be an officer
Right.
in the Army, and you got to know all about those things
Right.
until. So, Marie's back home, but we're
Marie's
serious.
my grandmother, just so everyone
Yeah,
knows.
yeah.
Yeah.
She's back home, and I'm mature. She's mature. We're not dating anybody else, and we're in love. And I asked her to get engaged.
Whoa. Hold on, take me back. I want to know, how was the, I know Grandma, you couldn't just whip that one out on her. So what was the plan? Give me the whole,
Now, first of all,
because Dad actually gave the, when he did the podcast, he gave me the whole engagement for how he asked Mom to marry him.
yeah.
So I want to hear, I don't know the story of how you asked Grandma.
Well, we sort of eased our way into it. We went steady. We didn't see anybody else.
Right.
We did everything together, and the way I did it, it was in a formal way. I was going to give her a ring,
Yep.
and that would be, I would say, this is our engagement ring, and she would either say yes or no.
So there was no like special spot you wanted to do it or anything?
I did want to do it in a special spot. Yeah, but what I did was I had to find out what kind of a ring to get it. I don't know if you guys were trained in all of that,
Yeah.
but I had no training in how to buy a
ROTC
engagement.
doesn't teach you.
No. But her family aunts owned a jewelry store,
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I forgot
and
about
she
that.
used to work there. So Marie really knew her jewels. She knew her jewelry, and she knew what she would want as an engagement ring. So I smartly went to that same store, and her aunts showed me around, and I came to the decision I was going to buy her this 1.5 carat emerald cut perfect stone diamond ring with side baguettes. I don't even know what that was, but that's what they gave me. And so I have the ring now, and it's called, now I got to present the ring to Marie.
Hey, did you have to ask Papa Joe and so my grandmother's?
Well, they knew it was coming.
Okay.
Because that was their sister-in-laws who knew that I was looking for the
Right.
ring. And I had wonderful mother-in-law and father-in-law, and they were just Marie's parents and whole family.
Yeah, and Papa Joe.
They were wonderful. So I'm trying to recall now exactly how I did it, but I was going to surprise her with a ring, and I took her hand. We were out on a date. I took her hand and I slipped the ring No, I didn't. It was midnight mass at St. Anthony's Church.
Real fast, give me an age. How old are you at this point?
Yeah, we were teenagers. So we were like, I was
18,
19,
19?
She was 18.
Okay.
So we go to St. Anthony's Church because I want to do this in a sacrificial kind of a way.
Right.
And we're sitting in if you've been there, it's a beautiful church. It was my parish church. And I take her hand, and after communion, I take her hand and I slide the ring on her finger. And she looks at it. It felt like she was looking at it for half an hour to check it out. She was looking at it and not saying a word. Then she turns to me and she kisses me.
That was a yes?
That was it. That was a yes.
Wow.
So we got
very
engaged.
simple.
I did it, but I did it in church in St. Anthony's downtown in Greenwich Village, and we were engaged.
You know, it's funny. That's perfect for Grandma because my grandmother hated surprises. So I don't think she would have liked everyone being like, "Oh, look at
No. Well, Marie, I got throughout life with making surprises for Marie throughout the life.
It's like the meanest thing you could.
She said, her girlfriends would say to her, "How can you go to Italy without knowing where you're going?" Because I took her to Italy. She said, "When he stops taking me to these wonderful places, then I'll complain about it."
Yeah.
He said, "He took me to Paris, he took me here, and I'm going to complain."
Right.
You know, so I gave her that ring. We celebrated, and now we've got to prepare for the wedding.
Right. So I'm going to kind of push you forward a little bit here, but so you get married basically right out of college, correct? Like there wasn't much time in between.
They said we had to wait until we got out of college. So I'm a junior. She gets the ring, and we're waiting. And now comes, when do we get married?
So you're in college at this time. You've been dating for 3 years at this point.
Years.
What's Grandma doing? Because Grandma didn't go to college.
She went to. She was working.
Oh.
Because
the jewel.
She got a job when she graduated high school, and she was an honor student, and she was in everything. She was great in everything. She got a job working in an attorney's office, so she was a legal secretary.
Wow.
And she was very, very good at it. So we're preparing for our wedding day, and we can't wait. In those days, the rules were different.
Yeah.
You waited until you got married. So that's what we did. So she was there at Fordham. I graduate from Fordham. I get my bars, my lieutenant's bars, because I had been down to Fort Benning, Georgia in my senior year. You had to do that twice, and I made it. So I got my bars as a lieutenant.
Can I ask, Bob, how were you getting down to these places? Like, were you
take
driving?
the train.
Oh, wow.
No. I didn't. In those days,
no car. Yeah, car was breaking.
Could afford that.
Yeah.
No, I took the overnight train from Penn Station.
My God, Bob, I don't know how you did that.
There, Fort Bragg and Fort Benning. And what they're doing down there is that these guys are hard-bitten combat officers trying to figure out if you can be an officer.
Right.
So you're in all kinds of training. They put you in situations. They put you out in a coffin where the Chinese communists used to put our soldiers in and see if you can last that long in there. And some people can't do that.
Claustrophobic, yeah.
You're doing everything: machine guns, rifles, etc., etc. Tremendous training, and you don't really know if you're going to get it until you get back to Fordham and you graduate. So on the day of graduation, I get my diploma, my liberal arts diploma from Fordham. I get my bars, and Marie pins my bars on my shoulders at ROTC. I'm a lieutenant in the ROTC. And then 2 weeks later, we get married.
Wow. I didn't realize it was that quick.
Everything happened.
God damn.
Oh, we couldn't wait.
That is a fast turnaround.
We couldn't wait.
Yeah, wow.
And so she had prepared this whole wedding and stuff because...
Was your wedding in a church? Like, did you guys do the whole, or was it just like?
Of course, we had a nuptial mass. It was crowded, filled with everybody, relatives, friends, schoolmates. My college classmates came up. It was a gorgeous day, fabulous wedding planned by my in-laws, and it was a lawn wedding outside their house. So everybody came, and I still have a list of people who gave money. At the Italian weddings, they give money. There was people who gave $2, or $3, or $5. That's what they gave to our wedding, and we had this glorious wedding day. She was a movie star. And what happens in those days, you went on a honeymoon. Honeymoons were important. She picked out her honeymoon. She and I, we had talked about this, but she picked it out. We drove to Massachusetts, to Cape Cod. Unbelievable 2 weeks. We stayed on a cliff overlooking the ocean.
Wow.
She picked this whole thing out, and we spent 2 weeks after we were married on Cape Cod, traveling, eating.
Is that why you picked Cape Cod for the vacations, or?
Oh yeah.
That's the whole reason.
Oh, Cape Cod.
We'll get to that later. But I was just curious.
Still a wonderful place, but she was a teenager now. So when she was married, she was 19,
right?
And I had just turned 21.
Okay, so it's almost a 2 year.
Yeah, so she was a teenager, but she was so mature, and she knew just exactly how to act. She had these aunts and parents who taught her to be a lady, to be a woman. It's fabulous.
I'm going to pause you one more time because I have another question. So you skipped 2 grades.
Yeah.
So how are you still graduating at 21 if you skip 2 grades?
I skipped 2 grades in college, in high school.
Right.
And so I got to college when I was 17.
Right.
And then
you graduated.
You don't skip in college. So I graduated at 21.
Oh yeah, right. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Graduated at 21.
Right.
But
Because you normally graduate 22.
Pretty young at 21.
Yeah.
Guys are pretty young at 21. I was.
Yeah.
I was tall. I was skinny. But I would proudly wore my uniform, and I wore my uniform to our wedding.
Oh.
Wedding day.
And now, did you do that just because it's easier to no shopping?
No.
Than trying out tuxes?
We were so proud.
Yeah.
But after our wedding day and our honeymoon, which was just absolutely glorious,
right.
I got orders to report to Fort Benning, Georgia, and took her with me, of course, down to Fort Benning, and we drove through the eastern seaboard of the United States until you get down there to where you're living now, and we got a little apartment. And Fort Benning was the second phase of the training, and you had to pass this again in order to get really commissioned and be put on duty as an Army officer. You had to pass Fort Benning, and they had paratroopers and things, and I signed up for paratrooper because I wanted to be a paratrooper, but crawling under concertina wire, machine guns, the whole 9 yards for a couple of months to prove that you can be a lieutenant. Next up. During the time we're down there, Marie gets pregnant. Grandma gets pregnant and goes to the hospital because she's having trouble with her pregnancy.
Right.
And she was in the hospital, and I'm trying to get through that. I'm worried about her. The parents come home, do this, that. We stayed. She came out of the hospital. Everything was fine. And I get my orders now. I passed.
You passed the test.
The tests down there. They're all mostly physical, but all kinds of leadership tests, you know. And you have guys from the airborne or Rangers and stuff like that. They want to find out if you're good enough, or they don't want you in the military. I was so proud to have done that. And now I get my first assignment. They ask, where do you want to go? And you put down some nice light place. Like, let's say Germany. Yes.
Yeah.
And so I get my assignment. South Korea. Right. So Marie's pregnant. I get orders to South Korea, my first assignment. Right. I have to bring her home, where she's going to stay with her parents and have the baby. Right. And I fly.
So one thing I think we've kind of skimmed over is there's no money, right? You're not really making any good money at this point at all.
No, not at all. I was caddying. I didn't have a job.
Right. You were just ROTC going into basically
military. And ROTC paid us $200 a semester. something like that.
Wow.
And I did a little side jobs. I wrote sports for local newspapers in New York City because I was a sports editor of the Ford and Ram also. And I used to get $5 and $10 from the New York Times, for example, to report on Fordham sports.
Mm-hmm.
So I made a few bucks here and there. But Marie was working, and we got some money from people at our wedding.
Right. So where were you living at this point, Pops? Because tell me if I'm wrong, but
Yeah.
right, Papa Joe and Nana had like some little house or whatever that you stayed
They had a
in?
little house, but remember I got married and virtually went into the Army right away. So
Right.
we didn't live.
So you didn't have a place to call home? Really?
No, I didn't have a home.
Gotcha.
My home was the Army, and they sent me to Korea. And Korea was what they called an undesirable tour. You could not bring your family. If they had sent me to Germany, I could have brought my family. Everything would have been nice and normal. They sent me to Korea.
Ooh.
And Korea was a war zone at the time.
Yeah.
And it still is, by the way, and it's very dangerous. And the Chinese communists want to march through South Korea right now and go on to Taiwan to take over Taiwan. So
Yeah.
it's a very dangerous place. I was a lieutenant, and there's what they call a demilitarized zone,
Yeah. The DMZ?
a DMZ, and half of that zone is for the Chinese and the North Koreans, and the other half was the American soldiers and the South Koreans. I was on the DMZ, and I was a platoon leader.
Right.
I was 21 years old, and I had a platoon of guys
Yeah.
who were half of them were Americans and half of them were South Korean.
Yeah.
So I learned a bit of South Korean, and I learned how to be a leader.
You also learned how to play pool.
I learned how to shoot pool. I learned how to play.
We talked about when Dad was on. We talked about shoot pool.
At the end of the night, when everybody's going to, after dinner, you're having dinner, there's a pool table.
And
that's
shoot.
all it is, every
So that's why we all
every
play
night.
pool.
And ping pong too. So I promised to Marie that I would write to her every single day. And she said, I'm going to write to you every single day. We both wrote letters every single day.
Yeah. We're gonna pause here because we
Yeah.
gotta go to dinner. It's already 5:52. See
Yeah,
how
then
fast?
we're talking
See how
about-
fast an hour goes
Yeah.
when you're doing this.
Right.
So we'll pause it there. We'll do more when we get back. Just
Yeah,
don't want to.
so I'm in Korea,
Yeah.
and I'm playing ping pong.
Yeah, that's where we'll leave off.
My first assignment there was as a platoon leader, and I had 45 men, and we were on the demilitarized zone. That was about 2,000 meters. Half of it was for the our army troops, and half of it was for
Right.
the South Korean.
Like people
the
used
North
to. I just remember the stories of people trying to run from North Korea through there.
Yeah, they
It's
tried
like
to escape. Well, they
yeah.
went not too long ago. They did that, and so it's a live zone. So my job was to stop the North Koreans and the Chinese if they were to come south.
Right.
And I had men there, and there were other platoons along with me. And part of the platoon would be young Korean boys. I was the old man. I was 21 years old,
Whoa.
and I was in charge.
Yeah.
And so we were dug in, and
So Papa Professor. So when you say in charge of how many men? Would you
45
say?
men.
45. Oh, okay.
That's the platoon.
That's one platoon.
Yeah, one platoon. That's how they start you. And if you got promoted to a captain, which takes a while to get there, and you got to convince them that you belong there, that's about 250 men.
You know what's funny is I'm thinking about kind of how we started this podcast. People probably think, who don't know the family and are going to listen to this, that you're some decorated general or something. Like that's how this ends. But there's like a pretty big turn coming up ahead. I'm just like, yeah, they probably think he's like a war hero.
Well, I did get a medal
Right.
for my tour of duty in Korea, and I learned an awful lot about leading.
Right.
I learned a lot about myself, what kind of person I wanted to be. I was fortunate in that I had a wonderful wife who had a baby back home.
Right. So at this point, Aunt Lisa's born.
Lisa's
Aunt
born.
Lisa's born.
But I take him back to Nana's house
Right.
in Elmsford, and then I leave to go to Korea. We're both crying.
So how long were you in Korea for before you came home?
It was 14 months.
14 months. Wow, that's a while.
Yeah. So we made a deal. I said, I will write to you every single day. And she said, I'll write to you every single day.
So you didn't see her at all for that 14 months.
No.
Wow.
I didn't see Lisa. I didn't see her. Not the family. I was on the DMZ,
Wow, that's amazing.
and other troops were there. And you're young, you're a leader. I'm 21. I was going to do the best I could for my country,
Yeah,
and I just wanted to get back home safe.
yeah, of course. So you're there for 14 months. 14 months is done. And Lisa's born. I'm going to kind of push you ahead to we're done with Korea.
Yeah.
Now we're home. We have the start of a family. Now we have to make some big decisions. Right?
No. Now that I get home, and they're going to give me my next assignment.
Oh, okay. It's
I'm
that
still in
fast.
because I had a 4-year commitment,
Right.
and so I got it.
Is that changed now though? Right. ROTC is 2 years, right?
No, I was out of the ROTC.
Oh,
I
so this is
graduated.
now your.
I'm
Oh,
now in
okay.
the
Now I
Army.
get you.
I'm a soldier.
Gotcha.
I'm an officer in the U.S. Infantry. I have a 4-year commitment, and after that, you sign up for
Right.
regular things.
Gotcha,
After
gotcha.
that. So, if we're wondering where our next assignment was going to be, I did everything possible to get home as quickly as possible. And as I told you, Marie and I wrote to each other every single day. She wrote a letter every single day, and I got a letter every single day. Except that sometimes I get 12 letters.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's gotta be some
And
timing.
we're catching up on it. But she sent me pictures, and she sent me cookies and all kinds of stuff. But we were dug in. We were in foxholes, and it was a dangerous territory because there are snipers, and they fire weapons at least 1,000 meters. So if you're walking around on a hill, as I was as a leader, they could spot you and shoot you.
Yeah.
So you had to be very, very careful. And there was all kinds of mines and stuff like that. So you're worried that you're not going to come back.
Right.
Something's going to happen to you. But I did. I survived. And I said, okay, it's time for me to leave. And I wrote in my book how I was honored by my troops and a little ceremony. And I got to make my way back, and I want to do it as fast as possible. And
Right.
I actually hitchhiked virtually down to Seoul to get a plane back to the United States.
Right.
And so it took a couple of hops, and finally I get back to Elmsford. And I get in, and I'm getting out of the cab, and who's looking out the window? Marie.
Waiting.
She says, I had a feeling you were coming home today.
Right. So Bob's, just so I'm a little
Yeah,
timeline wise. So you have the 14 months. You get your second orders, and that's to go back.
No, it's to go to my next assignment.
Right. And that next
So
assignment's where?
It was Fort Dix, New Jersey.
Oh, okay. So you're back in the country. Okay. I thought you were saying you did
I went to
another.
No, I went to
Yeah.
I went
Okay.
to
Gotcha.
Nana's house.
Gotcha.
That's where she stayed.
Yeah.
And that's what she had Lisa, and she wrote
Awesome.
it every day. And she was safe, and I was happy with that. And well, she wanted to know that I was safe.
Right.
And so our next tour is the U.S. Army Personnel Center in Fort Dix, New Jersey. And I was a lieutenant, a senior lieutenant. And so I headed up a command. And then I got another command, which was a company, an overseas company that was doing very, very poorly. And the colonel put me in charge of this division for whatever reason. He saw something in me. And I turned around the entire unit.
Right.
It was the worst unit in his command.
Yeah.
It became the best unit in his command. And I learned a lot about how to deal with people, how to deal with, like organizations, etc. I say this because later on, all that came back to me when I went into the business world. I learned so much in the military that was very relevant to what I learned later.
Right.
So I got the Army Commendation Medal for the 8th Overseas Replacement Company, which was where I turned around that unit.
Right.
And then Grandma and I were talking about what's our next assignment, because we were getting through that. Now we were like 24, 25 years old.
Is Aunt Robin coming at this point or no?
Yeah, we had Lisa, then Aunt Robin, and then Dee.
Okay.
Three that
Right.
were in Fort
So at
Dix.
this point, you have 3 kids.
3 kids. Three
Yeah.
kids, and we're in Fort Dix. And my tour of duty.
So real fast, just because I think our viewers don't really understand that. So from the ages of 21 to 24, you already have three kids.
Three kids. And
you
half the time Marie was by herself with her mother. So we had some decisions to make. I could leave the Army because I fulfilled my commitment, 4-year commitment, or I could stay in the Army. So we went down to the Pentagon, Marie and I, to say, what do you have in mind for us for our career, so I can make some judgments. And they said, well, you've done a really good job. We know you want to go into the military intelligence branch, and we're going to give you the military intelligence branch as your next assignment. However, that assignment is in Maryland, and you can't bring your wife there. You go to training during the week, and on the weekend, if you wish, you can go see your wife.
And that wasn't happening.
Well,
so
the next assignment was I was going to be sent to Europe because I was an infantry officer. I would be a captain in the infantry. And I was in the 7th Cavalry Division. And they were in Germany, and they were training for a little reason. The war in Indochina.
Right. So really you were given two options. It was you can either have more of like a military intelligence, which to me sounds like more of a desk job, or...
That was just a short training tour. Right. That wasn't going to be...
Is that kind of like CIA or like...
Yeah,
okay.
That's what attracted me to it. I thought I could do that. It would be very interesting.
Right.
I was probably naive in thinking what that was all about, because I'd probably have to be away from my family a lot, and I was trying not to do that. Because Fort Dix was good for me because I didn't have to travel anywhere.
Right.
So we came back, and we had the deal was you're going to be promoted to captain, you're going to go into military intelligence, and then you're going to go to Europe as an infantry commander. Mm-hmm. He says, well, or the Army's over. You serve your 4 years, you served it well. I got the Army Commendation Medal. And we sat down and we talked. And we talked about everything. What should we do? Because we made this decision together and looked it over. We're going to have more children. We're Catholics. You know, we wanted to be together. She was all alone by herself. I'm not with her parents. When I was in Korea, in Fort Dix, it was better. I was there with her. But now we're going to go back to her going to be maybe back with her parents again, me in Germany. So there's a saying in the Army, the toughest job in the Army is an Army wife.
Yeah.
She's the toughest job because he's got the job, he's doing it, she's got the kids, she's moving around, she's got to pack them up, and the schedule is the Army schedule. It's not, I love the Army, I wanted to serve, I was patriotic. I was honored to be in the Army, but we sat down and we said, this will not work for our family. And we decided to leave the Army.
Big change. Big. See,
change.
Everyone viewer up until this point was probably like, he's some military veteran. He's the American James Bond.
He's never going to come back. He loves the Army, and it was all true.
Yeah.
And she loved the Army. She was so proud to be an Army wife. But then what happened is 3 little babies. The oldest was 3. Yeah. And we knew we were going to have more, but we had the 3 girls, and she was never complaining. She wasn't a complainer. I said, we can't do this. I can't do this to her. And I put in my papers to resign, and now I had to go find a job.
Yeah.
Came out of the Army, and it was a big recession, and we were searching for all kinds of things and couldn't find a job. I finally found a job selling insurance, which is a typical job that people have, for Mutual of New York. They were one of the largest life insurance companies in the country. And I started selling insurance. It was a recession, nobody's buying insurance. Yeah. And they liked me, I was an Army officer, I was working hard, I was cold calling, I was doing everything I was supposed to do, except closing the sales. Yeah. That's the only thing that we couldn't do. But I was working on weekends. I was driving a taxi. I was working as a busboy and a waiter to support my family.
Is it the same place that you were waiting beforehand?
Yes, I went back there, and they said, sure,
Please.
So anything to make a buck and to be with my family. So one day I made a cold call on a guy who was in White Plains, and he was a vice president of the at&t company. And I made an appointment to visit his office. He invited me, and we started talking. And he told me what he needed, what he wanted, what he thought. And I said, I don't really think you need any insurance. I said, you got plenty of insurance, and I'm here to sell you insurance. I know this sounds funny, but I wouldn't feel right selling you more insurance that you don't need.
Right.
He said, I never met a guy in the insurance business or one place who ever told me that they didn't want to make a sale with me.
Yeah, right.
And he said, are you interested in working for a company called at&t? Steady work, pay, sales, etc. in New York City. He says, you want to take an interview? I said, sure. I'm not making any money now.
So the law school stuff, are we up to that point?
No.
Not yet? Okay, go ahead. Continue.
So I get hired by at&t as a salesman. And at&t has, they go out and hire people for their leadership jobs in colleges and universities and get engineering degrees and all that.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize, or maybe they do, I shouldn't say all, but when you have a company that big, and at&t even back then was a huge company, there's certain vetting that you can't just, it's not like any other company where it's just people in certain positions.
No.
There's a whole, dream team aspect to it.
Well, here's what happens.
There's so many levels, I should say.
Here's what happens. They hire engineers because it's an engineering company with an MBA. Okay, they come right out of the MBA program and they put them in assignments at at&t, and they move them around to different organizations where they get evaluated by different people and they get promoted. Those people are moved up to the top of the company if they survive.
Right.
So they are the few and the sought after people.
The unicorns.
The unicorns in at&t. They also have other branches like lawyers and stuff like that. So I get hired in an ordinary sales job, and I'm starting to get some pretty good appraisals. I'm doing. I'm
selling like crazy. Wolf of Wall Street of at&t.
Wall Street, and all I had to do was go in, find out what their needs were, because they had a lot of telecommunications needs, and I'd say, we can put this kind of service in for you. You can save money, but also do more, blah, 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 what salesmen do. And they sort of liked what I was doing. So they started moving.
Give me a time frame real fast. So we started at 24. How long did this take?
Well, that was in about a year or two.
So let's say 26, you're already getting this.
And so they started to treat me almost like they were rotating me. So I... Because I looked at the job and I said, I'm never going to get anywhere in this company. I'm going to be a middle manager.
But you're making ends meet. It's not a bad job at all.
I'm a young guy. I'm 25 years old. What do I need to do? And I said, well, I've got to get more education. My degree was an English degree.
Right. I'm
in an engineering company. And so I said, Marie and I sat down and we said, I have two choices. I can go for an MBA degree and then qualify me maybe for higher positions at at&t, or a law degree. The law degree was another long shot because they only hired lawyers from Ivy League schools, and they had to have experience in law.
Right.
So we looked it over. MBA was going to take us maybe 2-3 years. The law degree was going to be 4 years. Night school, 4 nights a week in New York City.
Wow.
I took law school. Grandma and I said, we're going to go for law school.
Who's paying for it? Yeah. So you're still paying for it. So basically, all the at&t money.
No, just. So, however, though, at&t wanted, and they called me and they said, you're not putting any money in for your tuition for your schooling. Why? I said, well, I'm getting money from the Army.
Oh.
I got some money coming out of the Army.
Right.
And that would have been a double dip. Because I said, yeah, everybody would have just said, I'm getting it from the Army, so what? I'll get it from at&t too. So they felt, this is an honest guy who's not trying to game the system.
Right.
So I hooked up they put me in the marketing department. I went out to Bell Laboratories. I learned a lot about.
I'm sorry. Post now you're done with all your classes.
I'm in that sales job, and they're moving me around.
Right.
And they moved me to a marketing job.
And this is, I'm sorry, again.
In AT&T.
This is after you finished the law stuff, or
No,
you're
no.
still doing it?
No.
Okay, gotcha.
I'm still in the process of deciding what I'm going to do.
Gotcha. Okay.
Because I know I'm not going to get anywhere in the company without an engineering degree. The law degree was like kind of a long shot to me. So I looked around and I found out that if I went to law school, it would be 4 years at night. I'd have to go into New York City. And then the work is really on the weekend when you have to do your homework and all that stuff. And
on top of your job.
On top of the job. And the commute.
Yeah.
Et cetera. So we sat down and we made all our decisions together. And I said, what do you think? Marie always said, whatever you think is best for the family. Right. I said, let's go for it. So I'm in my 20s, about 24, 25, and I take the law school exam, and I pass. And I sign up for law school, New York Law School, downtown Manhattan.
Gotcha.
I'm studying all elements of law, trial law, finance, tax law, all kinds of law. And they made it very clear to me that I would never have an opportunity to be a lawyer in AT&T. They said, we only hire Ivy League graduates who have 5 to 10 years experience in law.
Right.
So I get a graduation, by the way. I take all the kids to the graduation ceremony.
So this is 4 years later, so now
you
have all 5 kids at this point, right?
Yeah.
So just so we're up to par with everyone, so that's Aunt Lisa was first, Aunt Robin was second, Aunt Dee, my Uncle Bill, and then my dad, who you guys know from the...
And in the book, I write exactly how old that
all by 28.
Yeah, he was older than 20. But remember, she was 27.
Right, still.
And she was a love. She wanted it.
Yeah.
And we had a little house in Elmswood. It was very, very tiny, and we busted out of that house.
Yeah.
But I'm going to law school. I'm getting some... And they're moving me around. They moved me from the marketing department to the accounting department, which was a good sign. They moved me then over to another assignment, and I was being moved around because people saw me and felt that I was a talented guy. And the fact that I was going to law school didn't bother anybody because I wasn't going to be in the legal department.
Right.
You
weren't going to be in court.
No way. So I get the law degree, and I write in the book how I surprised the kids and Marie. They called me and told me, I had a job in the legal department. I took everybody to New York.
At AT&T.
At AT&T. And I would have a job as a tax attorney. I had no tax background. I was going to be a tax attorney. You know how important taxes to AT&T?
Oh, yeah.
Huge, because all the property that AT&T has is evaluated by tax assessors. And they're a sitting duck. A tax assessor can put any number on the property, and AT&T is going to argue with you.
They can't argue it.
And they had to pay the taxes. So I went. I had the whole northeastern part of the country. I had 40% of the tax dollars, and I actually said, "This doesn't make sense to me. I'm going to go out and talk to these tax assessors, and I'm going to find out. I'm going to tell them what this equipment they're taxing is all about and what it's worth, and that they're taxing me too much. I'm taxing AT&T. And they'd listen to me, and some of them would say, no. I said, well, I don't have a little talent because I'm going to have to sue you because the taxation is too high. Well, can't we work?
And these guys don't want a lawsuit with AT&T.
They don't want to look.
Yeah.
Can we make a deal? I cut AT&T taxes dramatically. All I did was my job.
Right.
Drive, and I had a Volkswagen. I was driving all over, and we had cable systems that are underground cable systems. If they went through a town, the town would tax us for the cable, this part of the cable system.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And,
so they had
and then they microwave towers, equipment, and I got the taxes down very, very low. And we had a thing in New Jersey. We had an undersea cable, and they wanted to tax AT&T unbelievable amount of money. And I filed a lawsuit and sued them, and they were found.
Oh wow, really?
I did all of that. So I'm happy. I'm doing it, and figuring this is my life, and I'm getting treated good at the.
Taking down the big ones, Bill.
Taking down the big one, and all of a sudden, I was stopped by a vice president of the regulatory group at AT&T. The regulatory group deals with government agencies in Washington. They deal with the FCC, they deal with the Congress, etc. Because if anything you need to do when you're AT&T and you're a regulated company, you have to get the approval of the FCC.
Right.
So if you wanted to come up with a new product, you had to go down to them, explain it, why it fit, the way that they thought about these products and how you needed these microwave towers. You had to get approval for everything.
Yeah.
That was the bread and butter of AT&T. I was in the tax department. Not a big deal for AT&T, but important.
Right.
They saw how I operated, and they said, "How would you like to have a job in the FCC department?" I said, "Sure. More money, promotion, better job." So I became a lawyer for AT&T in Washington. I didn't live in Washington, but I had to go to the FCC, deal with congressmen, deal with lawyers, and argue cases. And I was very successful in getting the FCC to think very favorably about AT&T.
Right. So how many years did you do that for? Up until give me how old are we?
It was maybe. I'm trying to think now. It could have been. They moved me up there 6-7 years.
Oh wow!
Yeah, it took a while.
So you're
but now I got one of the top legal jobs at AT&T. Now
and this was a guy that was supposed to be Ivy League. It was told it would never make it.
I had none of that. That. All I knew is when I went to the FCC and I tried a case, they believed me.
Right.
Because I knew what I was talking about. I came out of the organizations because I knew Bell Laboratories. I knew all that stuff. These lawyers who came in didn't know anything about AT&T.
So let me ask you this, kind of sidetrack a little bit, but now you're making good money, right?
I'm happy with it now.
So how's life changed at this point with the kids and family?
Life changed dramatically because we were busting out of that house. It was too small. And
5 kids. 5 kids that are now.
It was like a bungalow.
Right. So
they go to school.
Yeah. Let me just real fast. So you're in your 30s now at this point.
Yeah, early.
Yeah. So that means Dad's got to be 5. So everyone else is about a year or two apart.
We had 5 and 6 years.
Right.
And they were beautiful children.
Right.
We sent them to the Catholic schools.
But what I'm asking is, how old's Dad at this point? Probably 5 years old.
Who?
My dad.
Your dad would about 5.
So this is where you got to be in your mid 30s at this point.
And so one day I'm watching a football game with one of my classmates from law school, and I get a call from Grandma. I found the house of my dreams.
Right.
The football game was on.
Priorities.
She says, "Please come up on the."
How'd Grandma find it?
She was driving around with a girlfriend because I was visiting this guy in a little town in Westchester called Mohegan Lake. That's where he lived.
Right.
And so she came with me, and the 2 wives went out looking at homes. They like to just look around. Yeah. She finds this house on the hill. Okay, I'll come over and look at it.
Yeah.
I look at it. It was a shambles. It had beautiful property. It was overlooking the Adirondacks, an unbelievable property.
So
high on a hill.
For our viewers, because we can talk about it now that you don't live there anymore, but you lived on top of Bear Mountain, right? That's the name of the mountain?
No.
Oh, really?
It was.
No,
Bear Mountain's another place.
Oh,
that's up there. But it was a hilltop on.
But we're talking about the house that you had for many years. Yeah.
That's in Mohegan Lake.
Oh, is it? I always thought that. Dad always told me that was Bear Mountain.
No, if you looked up, Bear Mountain was up further.
Okay.
Over the Hudson River.
Yeah. So, but this house, that house is gorgeous. Yeah, but now it's gorgeous. But a lot of work has been done. But it overlooked the entire city. Yeah. It's like anyone's dream house.
It was a dream house for her. She knew homes. She came from a home. I came from an apartment. I knew nothing about homes. and to me it looked like a shack because it was a summer colony, and lots of people who lived there that you would go up for the weekend in nice weather and spend the summers there. Then they
Right.
close their homes up. But she saw something there. She saw this property that was fabulous. She saw the view, and she said, and her family was very, very handy.
Papa Joe.
Papa knew how to do, and all they, and so she said, the way she looked, I said, let me make them an offer.
So for context, Papa Joe is my great grandfather, my
Yes.
grandmother's father.
Her mother and father. They were the most wonderful people. I had fabulous in-laws, fabulous parents, and everybody did more than we could possibly expect. We had 5 children. We were a young couple with 5 children. We'd go to Nana's house every Sunday for dinner because we couldn't afford to have all that stuff.
Yeah. So as we were just talking about in the car, so we're fortunate enough, as obviously guys have figured, we're all very close as a family, but I knew my great-grandparents.
That's right.
Very few people know their grandparents now.
That's because they were very young when they were married.
Yeah.
We were young when we were married, so they were grandparents, like in their 30s.
Yeah, that's unbelievable.
Yeah, so you had the love of your grandparents and and great grandparents on both sides, and that became part of our family values.
Yeah.
We would go to dinner at Nana's house. We'd hang out. The aunts and uncles would come. The cousins would come.
And everyone lived pretty close to each other.
All
too.
lived in that neighborhood. The same thing. I take the kids down to New York, where my parents lived, and did the same thing. And my grandmother had a house in Elmsford, and that side of the family, the Catucci side, would come up to Grandma's house on the weekend, and we'd take you up to see all your grandparents and aunts and uncles.
Question real quick, this is more so for me. At what point did your mother move to that house that I've been to? Because see, in my head, I always thought you kind of lived in that house.
You're talking about my mother?
Yeah.
Yeah. When my father died.
Okay.
And then when he passed away, we took her up to Elmsford to live with us, my brothers.
Oh, see, I didn't know that.
She couldn't live alone.
Gotcha.
But my father died suddenly at a very early age.
Yeah.
He was only 51.
Wow. Heart attack?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, I mean, that was the love of her life. They were teenagers.
Inseparable, yeah.
Yeah, they were teenagers when they got married. So it was always very close with the family. But when your grandmother saw that home, she was just amazed by what she saw. And I saw the opposite. It looked like a shack.
Yeah. Because at that point, the whole thing wasn't built out, right? The kitchen wasn't there.
Nothing.
Yeah.
It was just a summer place. And you know how summer places are. The
Yeah.
kids come, everybody, the relatives, they throw stuff all over. In about a year or two, her family would be up there twice a week with our uncles and everything. They made that house a palace.
Really?
That place, the grounds, we had 5 acres on top of a hill with a mansion with stone.
But the 5 acres was like a 90-degree drop.
Yeah, it was right. It was on that hill. At the top of it was flat, and then you had a lot of property in the back, but that's what she loved. Nobody could live close to her.
I gotta mention though, so the we would joke about it all the time with my cousins and stuff. Yeah. Where if you were to so it's basically
roll all the way down the hill.
If you tripped like by accident, you were down that hill.
Like,
there's no stopping.
Exactly.
So it's like a 90-degree drop.
But this was her dream house.
Yeah.
And so we got out of the Army because she would have to be moving all over the world into rented places.
Yeah. You don't want that.
To me, I didn't know enough about it, but I knew that was not going to make her happy. Wouldn't have made me happy. But having her own home, the first home we bought was just a little cottage. That's all we could afford. It cost us like $6,000.
Wow.
16.
Did you have to mortgage that? Or?
Oh yeah. Where are you going to get $16,000?
Yeah, $60,000. Yeah.
And then this house though was $36,000.
Double. My God.
Double. Where was I going to get the money? Then I had to commute longer into New York City. And then my job moved down to Jersey from there.
Right.
But I said, if she wants this house,
So go ahead. Sorry.
if she wants this house, we're going to get this. And that became the house of her dreams.
Right. So at this point, you're doing the commute down to New Jersey,
New York, and then he moved me to Jersey.
right? So this is
90 miles.
This is what's insane about what you did and why. So when Dad was on, he talked about when he used to work at AT&T headquarters where we live now. That's a 5-minute drive for us. You used to go all the way down from Westchester, New York, all the way down every single day to where my dad works now.
In a Volkswagen.
Yeah, in a Volkswagen. So that was like an hour and a half drive, basically.
I always looked at the other side of things. I had a radio in that car, and I used to listen to rock and roll music.
Just
all the way down and all the way.
That was like
there were no phones in the car, so you couldn't call and be on the phone.
There's no kids like your one time.
I was in that car. I was hunched over by the time I got out of it. And I was 6 feet tall. So I did the commute.
So okay, pause it.
Yeah,
so what time would you be waking up to get to work?
Figure, I had to be at work no later than 9 o'clock.
So you're leaving at 7:30.
Yeah, 7. You had to get up early.
And then what time you getting home?
Well, sometimes when you finish work at 6:30, and an hour and a half, and
you're back at 9.
Yeah, but there's traffic all the way. It's an hour and a half to an hour and 45 minutes if there's no traffic. There's never no traffic.
So the other part of this that I think is kind of funny is Grandma never drove.
No.
so it's like, how are the kids getting to school? Right, they would have to take the bus.
The bus took them to school, or they walked.
Or they walked. So my dad tells us like war stories about like it was like the crossing of the trenches. But
exactly.
So
So that was a period that I'm starting to make hay at AT&T.
And at this point, you're still the lawyer. You're in that one.
I'm a lawyer there.
Yep.
I'm a lawyer. The money's better. I have to go to Washington. I have to go to various places to argue cases because I was a practicing lawyer. I very often had to meet with congressmen who are the people behind the FCC. Right. The FCC reports to the Congress, and you've got to convince them. So you had to make a pitch, and the pitch would always be, we need this. Here's why. We don't want any more regulations, blah, 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 blah. So I got a job, a learning job as a lawyer and a lobbyist in Washington. And I was very successful in certain cases. And I was very successful in negotiation. So they pulled me off my job and they said, we want you to do something. We got a company up in Canada that we want you to take a look at. Not in Canada, in Alaska. In Alaska, it's called Alascom, and we'd like to purchase that company and see what we can we can do, because then we'll connect our network to Alaska, blah 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 blah.
It has to go to Canada.
Very strategic, blah Canada, Russia's right there, China, that. So I get tapped to put a team together. And whenever I did something like this, if I could, I tried to get more education. You can learn things. Like, a lot of people think they can negotiate things. There are negotiating techniques and things. So I go, I'm going to get some more information. I go to a 3-day course in negotiations. I learned so much. I never was one of these guys who said, I know everything. I'm a lawyer. No. I wanted to learn. I wanted to do things right. So I lead a team, and I meet the owners of this Alaska telephone company. Right. And they said, I said, I'm here at AT&T, and they had a appraisal of their company, and the appraisal was $686 million. That's what they wanted for the company. I said, okay.
Man, that's a lot of money back then.
That's a lot of money.
680 million?
Yeah. So I come back to the people at AT&T, and I say, made some inquiries, met the team up there, the owners, etc. And the owner was the relative of a congressman, a very powerful congressman in Washington, so he was connected. And I knew that wasn't going to help, me, because Congress oversaw AT&T, and if they wanted AT&T to do something, they could put the arm on you.
Right.
So I had the number, and I said, okay, we'll start our negotiations. And I got some engineers, and I got some all kinds of people, and I put a what they call an alternative to buying.
You
the thing.
lowballed them. No.
What would it cost us to build a carrier system through
Right.
Canada and blah blah blah, and up there it's like $1 gazillion, So the board of directors is behind all of this. They don't tell me how much, I'm authorized to spend. So we're back and forth. I'm traveling to Alaska. They're traveling back. I have a team of people. The numbers coming down
Right.
and around, and we're doing this for a whole bunch of time. And it's getting down to a point where I'm going to make my move. And
When you say a lot of time or a ton of time, like are we
Months.
talking a year, months? Okay.
because you got to put studies together.
Right.
You got to meet with consultants, etc.
Yeah.
Flying up there,
When
it
you're
takes a
throwing
week.
around, when you're throwing around that much money, it's not like
A lot of
let's
money.
just make a difference.
Exactly. This
It's
is
not like
like
regular. It's not like negotiating a car.
No, yeah, and I went to this negotiating school for a little bit before that, and I got some techniques down and everything. And so finally, I decided to meet with this guy who was the owner, and he was the chief negotiator for the company. And I said, we've been going back and forth. You're coming up, I'm coming up there. You're coming down here. I'm going to make you one offer, and if you say yes, I'll shake your hand, and it'll be over, and you'll get the money, and we'll get our telephone company. He said, oh, okay. What's the offer? I said, I will give you any number that starts with a 2. This is 2. That's $296 million. Qualify? I said 2, right? That's a 2.
Yeah, should we say really? That's all it took.
That's all.
So
I'm
managed
telling
to-
you, that was the end game in the beginning.
Right.
And in between,
There's a lot of numbers.
not only that, I'm looking at what it would cost us to build
Right.
it, et cetera, and what will the congressman think, et cetera. If you look on the books today for the cost of the worth of it today, it's 296. The money I
Really, it's still the
you
way
just
to say.
look it up on.
Wow.
Yeah. So I bought that company for AT&T. I went back to the board of directors. They had allocated me $400 million.
Wow, you've undershot by
And so I'm getting a reputation as not just a lawyer. I did a lot of that with the tax work. I did that with the
Right.
AT&T work, and I was very honest and sincere with people, because that's the only way to operate. Because if you think you're going to tell somebody something here and it's a lie, and then you're going to go someplace else,
Right.
they're only going to tell you, don't deal with that guy. He's a liar.
Right.
I got a reputation of a liar that they could trust me. I had a case before the court, and it was a very sophisticated case about equipment in central offices of AT&T. I went to the guy who was going to try the case. He was the chief of the bureau. I remember his name till today, Jim Gentilla. He was going to try the case. I said, Jim, I'm going to make a deal with you. I'm going to try the case for AT&T, and you're going to be FCC. You don't know anything about engineering and this stuff, but you're going to try the case. I'll make a deal with you. We want to do something fair. I'm going to take you down to one of AT&T's central offices where all this equipment is, and I'm going to show you around, and I'm going to get some people to explain what this is all about, so that when you make your case, you're going to really understand it and not make up numbers or something.
Right.
And I'm going to be on the other side. The guy said, you would actually take me and actually educate me to do that? I said, why not? Doesn't that make sense
Yeah.
to both of us? That guy became my friend forever.
Right.
He knew I was honest, and if I said something, it was going to be the truth. I wasn't trying to nickel and dime people like
Right.
that. So I got a pretty good reputation at the FCC and down in Washington. I tried cases. I won cases. Usually, the cases at the FCC are a slam dunk for the government. You know why?
Right.
all the
Oh, 'cause-
the judges come from the
Right.
FCC. They're the judges.
Yeah.
And so they're going to decide for the FTC. So I got a fairly good reputation in doing that. And then along comes, and I'm going to shorten this stuff, I don't want to be forever. This fellow, Grandma and I were traveling, because I always took vacations. I always took every single day of my vacation. I
Right.
never missed a single
You
day.
know, Dad does that same thing.
No, he got that from me. There's a couple of things that make sense if you think about them, but you got to do them then. You can't do them after
Right.
the fact. Every single day. And so I was getting 5 weeks vacation, and I would take Grandma on secret vacations. She didn't know where she was going until
Yeah.
she got on the plane. I took her to Paris. I took her to Spain. I took her to Portugal.
So at this point, Papa, what age, if you're doing that,
I'm
you're
in
not
the
taking the
50s.
kids.
No.
Right.
No,
So
we-
at
we
this
had the
point,
separate-
everyone's out.
We had the separate vacations for the kids,
Gotcha.
and then we had vacations for just Mommy and Daddy.
So when you guys went when you and
Very
Grandma
right.
went somewhere, where did all the kids go? To Nana's? or-
No, they were grown by that time.
Oh, okay.
I'm
So
in my 50s now. You see, we had our children pretty young.
yeah. So hold on, I gotta think that. So Mom and Dad. So you're 50. Well, is that true? Because
Yeah. Because they were getting married.
yeah.
See, our kids went to where we had our children all
Trying to do
together
the
and
math.
very young.
Right.
They all graduated from college. They all went to work, and then they started to get married.
Right.
And we wanted to we took our grandchildren and children on vacations later,
Yeah.
but Grandma and I said we need vacations, just
Right.
the two of us, and we did that. We used to take vacations with our children.
So everyone's out of the house at this
Yeah.
point, though. Gotcha.
So her friends could not understand how I could take her on vacations like
Right.
that. You try that with a woman someday. You say, I'm going to take her someplace. Where? Well, what am I going to wear?
Yeah.
What,
Yeah.
You know, I said,
And-
"Here, leave it to me. If you don't like the vacation that I take you to,
Yeah.
then you do it next time.
Right.
Or you do it, you know. Now, this is a girl who went from Elmsford to White Plains.
Yeah.
That was all she did.
Barely
growing up.
making ends meet,
Yeah.
like that kind of
No,
stuff.
that's where her parents took
Right.
her. My first one was Paris. She surprised me. She,
See, what I love about this is, so for our family members who know Grandma, our grandmother hated surprises.
she didn't want to. She didn't want to be surprised.
Hated them.
She didn't want to be surprised, and she didn't want to travel. She
Right.
was afraid to do that. And I said, "This can't be." She, you know, and it's my job to convince her. And so I said, "Just if it doesn't work out, we won't do that." And so she's playing tennis with her girlfriends, and you know, oh, I can't play next week. But Bill and I are leaving. Where are you going? I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? We're going on vacation. He won't tell me. I had the car in the driveway. We drive to the airport. She finds out where we're going when we get to the airport. Paris. Well, how should you dress? I used to say, we're going to go away for 2 weeks, and you're going to have weather like there is in New York. And if you don't have enough clothing, guess what? I'm not taking you to a nudist colony.
We'll just
You
buy some,
clothes there.
Yeah.
And she got used to that. So the reason I mentioned that is that I never missed a vacation, and I took her to places all along around the world. So that first one was Paris. Then we went to the Amalfi Coast, and then we went to Spain and Portugal. So I'm in Portugal on vacation, and I get a telegram from Joe Nascio, who was a senior vice president at at&t. He says, I need you to come to Canada with me next week. We're taking the at&t private plane. I want you to come and look at this particular thing with me and give me your advice. Now, Joe knew me, and he trusted me, and I knew a bit about Canada. He takes me, so we fly to Canada, and it's the board of directors of a company called Unitel, sitting there. And I didn't know what he was doing. It was a show and tell. He wanted to show me off because he wanted to name me as the CEO of that company. But you had to get the board of directors to approve.
Yeah.
They all gave thumbs up, and they made me an offer. They didn't make it up on that point.
Oh,
They
that's
sent it in the mail, and I read the thing, the offer, and I showed it to Robin. It was about three days later, and Robin looked. He says, "Dad, this is fantastic. It's got your name written all over it. You could run this company, et cetera, et cetera. This is fantastic. There's no way your mother is going to
Move to Canada.
Move to Canada.
So at what point, Pops, because you said Unitel, at what point is it at&t Canada? They bought it out?
Yeah.
Okay,
When I took it over, we changed the name. Unitel was the name when it started in Canada, and it was failing miserably, and that's what this book is all about.
Do you want to give me that book? So, because I don't have it on me, but this book was the book that we were talking about at the beginning that was written about you.
About that,
about that company.
Just that one,
Noble
that one Enterprise.
Enterprise. So you can still buy this book, right?
Darwin Gillett, yeah. And another one just came out by them, which takes that book and puts all the stuff I did in that book in here.
That one, and that one's
Noble
called
Leadership.
Oh, okay. So we got Nobel Enterprise and Nobel Leadership in the Emergent Reality.
And they want me to be on podcasts to teach people what I.
Well, we haven't even gotten to the reason why they want it.
So I come back and I got to convince Grandma.
Good luck.
Good luck. No way. No way. She loves her home. She loves being with the family. We can't leave the family. Blah blah.
Right. This is someone, just so everyone kind of understands a little bit to bring it together. This is a family where everyone lived within maybe a mile or two away from each other. And now you're saying I got to take you out of it.
You go to dinner with Grandma and Nan and Papa every Sunday. Yeah. Everybody was there. She understood the travel, but how do we do this? I said, Marie, trust me. I am going to make this the most fantastic experience for both of us and our family you'll ever see. Mm-hmm. Okay, I get the most fabulous. Did you go up there to see it?
I was too young to remember Canada, but
first of all, I said a 3-year contract. I did not work one day over 3 years. I kept my word. Every weekend, we will come home. We will fly home.
Can you give the story real fast about when you went up there to this company and it was already a failing company? To me, that's one of the big stories of why. So you got to start.
The tough part for me was getting her convinced. The easy part was turning the company around.
Gotcha.
I got to tell you. So we did that. I got her straightened out. It turned out she really loved the place. It's a great place. But I go to a company that had 3 prior CEOs from at&t who failed, and there was a apocryphal story I used to tell about taking over a company, and whenever you're giving a speech, there's always a story, and I'd meet with the employees or the press. The press was very interested in this American coming up to this company and running this company because it was failing, and what was he going to do? There was all kinds of press when I came up there. So I tell this joke about the 3 letters. Guy taking over this job from this former CEO, and he says, I don't know what you did here, but do you think we could sit down for a little bit and you can give me a little advice on what to do? He says, I'm really in a big rush. I'm leaving tomorrow. I'll make a deal with you. I'm going to put 3 letters in the center drawer of my desk. And whenever you run into a problem, you open one of those letters, and it'll tell you what to do. This is a joke. So I said, okay. So I'm running the company, and the company's failing. It's getting worse. I don't want to open the desk drawer, but I open up the first letter, and it says, blame it on your predecessor. This is a joke. So I blame it on my predecessor, and I laugh. I make it through the first crisis. Well, we cut to the second crisis. Oh my God, I don't know what the hell to do. I got to open up that second letter. Open up the second letter. It says, reorganize. Move the central region to the eastern region. Move people to the desk and everything. And then that doesn't work. The final 3rd letter. I got to open the letter, and it says, prepare 3 letters. That was my opening joke. What I would tell people, and I said, this is what I was facing up here. It was losing $1 million a day. Everything about the company was failing. It was a telephone company that was trying to compete with Bell Canada, which was the big monopoly, and Bell Canada was eating their lunch. They were a nationwide company. Their owners were very powerful bankers, the railroad company, which is the railroad hotel company in Canada, and they invested a lot of money and they were losing a lot of money. The company was losing $1 million a day. That's like real money, $365 million a year. They bring me up, so they send me that letter in the mail, and convinced Marie that I'm just going to go up and talk to them. They sent that package, that contract, which was beaucoup, dollars, bonuses.
We won't have to give the money, but for that time, I mean, you're talking.
It was big money.
Yeah.
It was big money. All I had to do was take 3,000 people and convert that whole company. And I said, I will give you 3 years on a contract. That's it. Okay. What happened was the subject of noble enterprise. What I did with the people, with the strategy, with everything about that company. And by the time it was over, those people were crying when I left that company. They did not want me to leave. And it's written up, it's online too, that's the story.
Right.
If you look online, it tells the story about some of this stuff.
But, so when was because I might be going backwards, the story of where you had to drive up, is that same company?
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta give that story, because that's a good story.
The story. So the first day on the job was a Monday.
Right.
And there was a big sales meeting in Toronto. And this story's in the book too.
Yep.
And I was invited to the big sales meeting. And when you're the CEO, I'm not the big
so
deal.
this is, you just got hired.
I just got hired.
Yeah.
My first day on the job is Monday. There's a big sales meeting, and I planned to be there on a Monday for the sales meeting to meet the salespeople, and it was up in some big hotel or something. And there's this huge storm.
Worst storm in history.
Worst storm in history in this area. In this area, and I got some choices. So I drive to the 2 or 3 airports. No planes are flying. I said, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to drive to Toronto.
In the worst snowstorm
in history. In history. I drive to Toronto, and I get there about 1:30 in the afternoon, and I'm walking in, and everybody is looking. They can't believe I came all the way up there. They were clapping. Just the fact that I showed up.
Yeah, because they thought you were going to leave, right?
Well, they thought it would be, it's an easy thing for me to call. It's like, I can't make it. It's too dangerous.
Yeah.
My wife won't let me.
Yeah.
My mother-in-law won't let, whatever it was. It was treacherous driving, but I said, I made a commitment. I'm going to be there. That started to trigger. These people started to say, this guy's different.
Right.
And I told you that when I went to the barber shop, the Italian barber said, you're the new CEO of the company. They have a name for you. The WAP at the top.
I don't know if we could say that. I have to delete that one. No, yeah. We're Italian.
That's the call Italian. The WAP at the top. I said, that's good. At least they know me.
Yeah.
I never got angry or anything like that. I said I was very upbeat. But if you look at what I did, it was just very, very methodical.
Yeah.
People oriented. And when I look back on it, and even at the time, I thought it was very simple. Now, 3 guys couldn't do it. But when you turn a company around of thousands of people who are on surveys, they're global surveys. Hay is a company that specializes just in surveying employees. Mm-hmm. You call them up and you say, I want to know what my employees think about me and this company. Right. And they got maybe about 30 different vectors. Their pay, how they're treated, and this, that, and the other thing. We were in the bottom 10% of all companies in North America.
Wow.
When I left, we were number 6 in North America.
Wow, that's amazing.
It was thousands of, and so I didn't do it. I didn't fire one single person. I didn't let anybody go. And I told these people that we're going to turn this place around with
that's
the
insane.
Same people that they're telling me can't do it. I motivated them, and I used the the jazz model of business. You know what that is?
The jazz model?
The jazz model of business. I'm going to introduce to you very
Yeah,
quickly.
go ahead.
It's very important that you know this because how do you lead a company? You go up and say, hey, I'm the boss, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. Well, I had a big meeting, boss, and I had music. And it was Dave Brubeck, and he had a famous jazz tune. And I played this music coming in to the meeting. And jazz is a musical theory that operates this way. They play a melody, right? And then, let's say you have a jazz trio or combo, each playing different instruments.
Oh,
They
the
start
melody.
out playing the melody together. Then each one of them plays their own instrument individually. And then they come back to the melody.
Right.
Now, what does that got to do with business? I said, here's what I mean by this. We're going to put a plan together. We'll put it together. You're going to do this in your organizations. Then you're going to go out and do your own thing. We're not going to tell you how to do your job, when to do your job. We have objectives, but it's on you. And then at the end, we come back and look at and see how we've done. You know that one of the most popular things in Canada, even today, is jazz.
Oh,
They love it. They love it much more than we even love it in the state. They got it. They understood, and I operated that way. I wasn't going to tell. If you were an accountant, I'm the CEO. I can walk in. Let me tell you how to do. That's the stupidest thing in
Right.
the world.
You don't have an accounting background.
I
What
can't have a background in everything,
Right.
but you're the boss, so you know everything. I want to know who you are. I want to know a little about you. And
Yeah, didn't you interview every single person?
virtually
that-
every single person. I
That's
knew them by
insane.
name. What did it take? I walked around.
So you-
But I had stories
Yeah.
of things that I did there, and one just popped up. Somebody told me about it the other day. I decided that we ought to consider wearing little pins for our company. Now that's not a big deal. Companies do that in the United
Yeah.
States or something like that. I said, I want to strike a pin for A.T. Canada. That was the name of the company because I want us to be proud of what we're wearing and wear a pin. Well, you know, if I told 3,000 people that, at least 1,500 would say, "What the hell is this crap?"
Yeah.
We can do better. Well, I said, you know, people always say, why are we doing this? It's going to cost money. I said, yes, it's going to cost a little money. It's not going to be but I think we need something. We've been in the hole for so long. We need to be proud, and we want people to look at us and say, that's a good company. I want to do business with
It's a company that turned it around. Right?
Exactly. So what happens is, I used to walk around a lot. I did management by walking around. And I had a group of engineers. They were mostly Chinese guys who didn't talk very much English, but they were really good at the work they do. And I get to know the names of these guys. And one of these guys was Frankie. They called him Frankie the Animal or something like that, you know. And Frankie, and I always say hello and things like that. The CEO doesn't usually know people like that, but I was a walk-around guy. I wanted to walk around. I didn't stick in my office. Guess what? Frankie gets sick. He goes to the hospital. Guess what? His wife calls me. Frankie's in the hospital. I go to the hospital. See Frankie there in his hospital bed. He says, Bill, what are you doing here? You look great. That's Frankie. That's not all. Frankie dies. I go to his wake out in Oshkosh in Canada just to go to his wake. And I come back. I'm talking to a big crowd of my people. One of the big, I said, I want you to tell something. I want to tell you something. I just went to Frankie's funeral. It was Frankie the horse, they called it.
Frankie the horse. Okay.
Frankie the horse. I went to see Frankie in his funeral, and they knew this guy. And at the paper, I said, I looked in the casket, and Frankie had his AT&T pin.
Wow.
They were crying their eyes out. I said, that's what I mean. That's what we need in this company. People who are proud. And it was things like that. It wasn't just, okay, you got to fix this, that, and the other thing, and the engineer. I know that. That's basic.
Yeah.
But I can't say, but a lot of people who lead organizations never come out of their office. They don't know what the heck they think. I was always walking around. That's called MBWA. I would walk around and say, what's happening here? What are you doing? What are you working on? Hey, I heard your daughter, got a job or something like that.
Right.
Something.
You knew your employees.
I knew my employees. They knew me, and we had a bond.
So, I'm going to take it to kind of a grand scheme thing here.
Okay.
So, what I think anyone who would come in, they hear your jazz theory of how you did it. What exactly do you think you did that turned that company around in 3 years? Which is astronomical. Well, just the fact that you knew everyone. Like, what exactly do you think you did that turns a failing company around in 3 years?
You see, I'm going to turn your question back at you because that's what most people think. They're going to go in and there's this one thing that's wrong and we're going to turn that screw and it's going to
fix it. It doesn't work. Yeah.
So I'm giving you a bunch of things that I did that were, they were functional. We want to look at the network and make sure that the network defects are minimized.
Right.
We changed the pay. The pay situation was something I changed. That's very important. So we changed many things that contributed to that. There wasn't one thing. So many people have asked me that same question. There was no silver bullet.
Right. It wasn't
there was
anything
a lot
that was
of things, people things. There was the products that we sold, our sales, etc. And it's detailed in the book that take for instance the pay system. I don't know if you've ever worked with a pay system like this. You get a salary.
So just so you know, my viewers don't know what I do.
I know.
My viewers know me as a YouTuber.
You get a salary, and maybe if you're lucky and you work in a company that gives you a bonus at the end of the year.
Yeah.
And that would be good. I said that's good. It wasn't working because we weren't doing that well. I wanted to motivate people. What happens when you make your goal? Let's say you have a goal and you make your goal. Do you work harder or do you stop? Maybe you made your goal. Here's what I mean. If you made X here, you would get a bonus of say $10,000. Right. I got my bonus. I'm just going to.
Right. What's the incentive to keep going? Like what makes you want the 20? What makes you want the 30?
Yeah, right? but there's no compensation for that. So I set up a 1x, 2x, 3x bonus system, and here's how it worked. Let's say you're making $100,000, whatever. If you get $10,000, if we make this 1x bonus target, you get $10,000. Right. If we make 2x, you're going to get $20,000. If you make 3x, you're going to get $30,000.
It's tough math. I'm not understanding.
You know what I mean?
I would have never guessed.
I went to London. We had an office in London, and I told the people in Britain about my service. This was with Equifax. I said, hear me out. I got a bonus system that I worked with in the past. Oh, we don't do the bonuses here. Okay, all right. So I said, what humor me? Let's try it. Right. Let's see if it works. We're losing money. Blah 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 blah. And second year, I go back to London. Of course, I've been back there. I said, how did you think about this here? Oh, we're a little disappointed. What happened? We only made 2x. We only made 1x. I said, well, you got a bonus. You're disappointed because you didn't get the next bonus. Well,
right,
next year, we work a little smarter. We do it a little better. And we're going to make 2x and 3x. I wanted them to have objectives and goals that they would strive for. And that's how it works. So I had things like that's not rocket science what I'm talking about. And when you get a report on that from Hay, you go into it with detail. You say, they're telling us our organization doesn't like this, and that's why we're at the bottom. What do we do about it? And I brought my teams together. I said, this one tells us that they obviously don't have the training they think they need for the job. Boom.
Yeah.
So it was very scientific, but also very people oriented.
Right.
So that was that company. In 3 years, it was completely turned around. The day I left, the people were crying in the. He talks about it in the book. They didn't want me to leave.
Right.
And there's another. If you read it on the internet, for 10 years they had parties celebrating what they did when I was there.
Oh, really?
Out there, I went to a couple of them.
So, quick question. So, after you left, just because I don't know, who took over? Like another CEO, and did they just follow your footsteps, or?
You don't know what happened. You see, business is a funny thing, and people are a funny thing. They all, when they get to that level, they all know what they think they know, and they know better than you. And it's very hard to help. You think if I told everybody what I'm telling you that they just run and do it? No.
No. Yeah. There's more to it than.
And not only that, is that.
There's not enough time in a podcast to go through.
I know how to do that. You're telling me because there are guys who are and women or whoever who are up to that particular level, and you get to a point where you think you know it all. You know.
Right.
Well, you don't know it all, and I said it. I don't know it all. I don't know everybody's job. All I'm here to do is I want you to be the most successful people, you and your families. And one time I did something. I used to write a Christmas letter to all of the families and sign it in ink so that they knew it was, and I would have a note near people's names.
Wow.
3,000 people.
That's so insane.
There was those. Now that may sound like a nothing. They said, "Where do you use your time?" I didn't. I used my time wisely.
Right.
And I want to tell you something. At 6 o'clock, I left that office because I was having dinner with my wife every single night.
Right.
And I got to that office there at 8:30 in the morning.
Yeah, wow, that's amazing.
I didn't. It wasn't like overtime. So that's.
So I'm gonna push you forward a little bit,
Good.
just because I think people think that we're coming to an end here, but you did this too, not one company, two companies. So you finish at AT&T. Now, at what point does?
So I'm fat, dumb, and happy.
Yeah.
I go back home. My wife's happy and everything. And when you're a CEO of a company, sometimes you get invited to be on the board of directors of other companies.
Right.
And I was one of my large customers was a company called Equifax.
Right. And this was during the crash, right, of Equifax.
Equifax. So I'm on the board of directors of Equifax Canada.
So real fast, can you for some of my viewers, they don't even know what Equifax is. Okay. I kind of have an understanding, but even I don't. Well,
there are three credit reporting companies in this country.
Yeah.
They are typically worldwide companies. How do you get a credit report? Is a credit report important to you?
It's usually through their banks now. When you say, like, if you were to do credit.
How do they know what credit you're entitled to? You have a score.
Yeah.
Well, how do they do that?
Someone has to go through. I'm sure there's numbers and whatever.
Who's that?
That's Equifax. Yeah.
Think of all the data.
Yeah. So that's what I
have to collect all over the world to put it together in algorithms.
So this is what I'm saying. A company like Equifax, a lot of people don't know what it is.
No.
It's literally probably one of the biggest companies.
Yes,
out of three.
It's one of the largest, if not the largest, credit reporting companies in this country.
Yeah.
They are on the
world.
They are on the S&P 500. That tells you something about them.
Huge.
They're in 15 countries. They're in Europe. They're in South America. They're in Canada. They're all over the place. And they were doing very poorly. They were doing poorly. How were they doing? And what happens?
I think people don't really understand. If a credit company's not doing well, that's a serious issue.
Well,
it
means they're going to their competitors.
Yeah.
So there are two other competitors, and they're fighting for market share.
So now you have two. You have like a monopoly between two
people,
companies.
If you if you go and your credit report is all screwed up or it's incorrect in some way, you say, why is this happening? Right. Well, we got some problems with that company. Well, why don't we move our credit over to the other, TransUnion, which is another company that does the same thing. So you're competing. The world is competing, okay? So, and they're competing for market share. So let's say Equifax has 42% of the market share of the credit reporting business and is moving down to 38 or 36, that affects your stock price because the share owners who own Equifax, you got to say, who owns Equifax? Well, share owners. And they want that stock price to go up. They want Equifax to do a really good job so people will buy their stock, and that's the way it works. And if they're losing share, the stock, every quarter, people from Wall Street would come in and talk to me when I was at Equifax and say how we're doing, because they want to either recommend it or write a report on Equifax. That's the way the system works.
Right.
Most people don't know what I'm telling you.
Yeah.
That's arcane, but that's very real and very important. So
It's arcane, but when you have so many customers and so many people, it's kind of the best method without having to rework the wheel.
how else could you do it? If you found another way, they would break that code. But this is what's done all over the world.
Yeah.
They collect all this information and they come up with a credit report for you. So if Equifax doesn't do it well, they lose market share, they lose money, their stock price goes on. That's what was happening at Equifax. So the chairman of Equifax invited me to a conference.
Can I pause you real fast?
Yeah.
So you finish at AT&T. What's like the time gap?
It was probably 6 months.
Oh wow! So that's a
but they knew what I did in Canada because I was all over the newspapers in Canada.
Yeah. So
and they had Equifax has an office in Canada.
So at this point, I mean, I'm sure our
I'm
viewers.
a famous guy.
Yeah. So at this point, and I think our viewers can kind of figure it out. Like you're done by 55. Like you're like I can ride off in the sunset. I made my million.
Yeah. It wasn't
so
the money.
so. Was the mindset with Grandma was just like we're done, we can just enjoy life?
Well, that's
so
what she expected.
Yeah.
She said, "I want to go back home."
Yeah.
So, but remember, I told her we would be back home.
Right.
I made certain commitments to her. She was very much involved in not the details, but I made her very involved in the monetary aspects of our life.
Right.
What do I mean by that? What would you do to make her very, very
Knowing my grandmother
Yeah.
was the fact that all the family vacations, all the dinners.
I did
all
one
the
thing else. I took
antiques.
I went to a group of people who oversee people's estates, and you put your stock price in and everything like that. Your investment advisors. I took every single dollar I made and split it down the middle. She had 50% of all of the assets and all of the income.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well,
Think
what was
about
the
that.
purpose of that?
So she would have her own money. So a wife, if I have the money in my name,
Right.
wife wants to buy a car. What does she have to do? She has to ask me,
Ask
can
you,
I
yeah.
buy a car?
So you just said, Grandma,
No.
this is...
No, I said no.
Oh, I didn't realize you did it that way.
Not too many people do it that way.
Right.
So I took.
I mean, that's a huge chunk of money to just go,
Well,
here.
I'm going to tell you something. Those are M dollars.
Right.
We're talking
Yeah,
M dollars.
yeah.
And this is a girl who came from a lovely family, but didn't.
Can I ask something then?
Good.
So all of our... On this podcast, we won't go through all the family vacations and
Yeah.
stuff, because what my dream is to have all of our cousins together and do one big one.
27 different vacations. all
27
over the world.
different. So was that technically paid for by Grandma, or was that?
No, we had money,
Yeah.
a fund, but she had her own money in her name.
Oh,
And
I see what you're saying.
What
So
she would do,
okay.
what she would do if she really wanted to spend anything, she would take it out of
the account,
my
right,
account,
right, right.
not her account.
Yeah.
She left that alone. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
She's smart. She wasn't dumb.
yeah. She was
But
going
this
to
is a girl that didn't have any money when she started,
Right.
but she was a multimillionaire when she got finished.
Yeah,
You know what
yeah,
I mean?
yeah.
But the aspect of it was making her feel that she had a contribution and she was going to get a reward for
Right.
that. She contributed by being up there with me, and she did certain things. Not, she had to go to the opera. And
Yeah. For our viewers and
Yeah.
great grandkids that are going to watch this, our grandmother was very. She didn't ask for much.
No.
My grandmother was never.
She
her
was
big
humble.
thing was antiques. She always loved her
So
antiques.
you gave her. She was happy with everything she had in life.
Right.
She made me happy because she was happy. But the thing was, I wanted her to be happier. I wanted her to say, "This is a team, and it's not my money. because I know when my father came home from work on Friday, he gave my mother money to spend for the house.
Yeah.
That's the way husbands operate. Nobody says, listen, this is our money and half it's yours, do whatever you want with it. I trusted her and she trusted me. And so she was a multimillionaire.
Oh, yeah.
And she never said that. And she never talked about it.
She never spent it either.
and she never spent it.
Right.
And here's why. I'll give you an example. She loved cars, and I didn't care about cars. And so
Really? Grandma loved cars? I didn't know Grandma loved cars.
She knew cars inside out.
Hold on. What?
She knew cars inside. She loved cars. She came from her father was a mechanic.
Yeah. Well, I didn't realize that.
So here's what she did. So I always had the car that took us to South Jersey. I had a Volkswagen. That's all I cared about. Get me the working back. She had the second car. It was like, a 1956 Kaiser Frazer, whatever it was. And she would drive the kids around with that car. And I said, what kind of a car do you really want? You don't have to drive. We have the money.
Yeah.
And I'm going to give it to you, all the money, and you just take it out and you do whatever you want with that money.
Right.
And she says, oh, that's good. I said, well, what kind of a car, if you could buy a car, what would you want? She said, Jaguar. I said, Jaguar. I didn't even know.
Yeah, you were my grandfather.
She knew her cars.
So it's funny because now I understand where Dad gets it from. My dad's big into cars, whereas I know you are not.
I didn't even know what they were.
Yeah.
So
I'm like you. I'm not.
So
big
she gets the Jaguar, and she has 7,000 miles on it. That's it.
Yeah.
She drives, but she had the car she wanted. It was her money. I also said,
as I said, she never drove, guys.
She never.
She wouldn't go to the store. She wouldn't.
I could have said it's in my name, but you can use it. No, I wasn't going to. Another thing I did, I said, all of our resources we're putting in different pockets. We're putting a college fund with our college students and all of this, and we're doing this with them. You're going to be in charge of the college fund for our children. If we give any money to our children for their college, she has to approve. Not me. She approved all of the college money.
I have to know, was there any grandkids she didn't approve? She was. She was like,
I
don't know about Will.
It was so dumb. Once she came up and she just felt. She said, "You know what I'd like to do? I'd like to give all the grandchildren $10,000." I said, "Well, give it to them. We get the money. We go to the bank. I mention that to you because not because I'm bragging or anything of the money. Is that it's a simple thing to make a woman happy in a marriage. My job was to make her the happiest person in the world. How would I do that? To make her a slave? No. I said, the money is yours.
Do what you want.
It's not mine. Do what you want with it. If you want to get a maid, no, she would never do that. But it's your money. You earned it with me. I could never have earned this money without you. Yeah. So that was very important. And I did that at Equifax also.
Yeah, so let's go. Yeah. The story I want to start with for Equifax, because I always love this. This is the story I bring up to everyone. Was when the chairman brought you in. You got to start with that story. Okay.
So I go down to Equifax, and the chairman brings me in, and he's going to give me my advice. I'm reporting to him, and he said, this company is in very bad shape. You know that. That's why we brought you down here. And you can look online and see what the money.
It was not good. It was literally a crash, basically.
Yeah, but even what they offered me to come down there because I wasn't going to go down there for nothing. Yeah. I wasn't going to take my family.
Well, as I said, we won't talk about actual financials, but it was a lot of money.
It was a lot, and with stock options. See, that's what you need. You need like 500,000 stock options and stuff like that, and you multiply that with the growth of it. It's a lot of money. And so he says. The problem in this company is the leadership team that I have reporting to me.
So your executives.
You got to fire all of them. Every one of them. There was women, men. There was.
How many total? Do you remember?
10 people.
10 people.
Interesting. They're all bad people. Okay, I hear you. So that's my team. I call a meeting of the team. I've been reviewing stuff like a new person would. I want to look at numbers and names and where are these people, interviewing them. And I said, I'm going to tell you something. The one thing that you can count on from me is that I'm going to be honest with you. And I'm going to be honest with you right now. I just came out of a meeting. with Mr. So-and-so. And he advised me, now he's my boss now, he advised me to fire all of you and get an entirely new team because you're the team that brought us to where we are. We're down in the stock market. Everything is bad about the company. I'm not going to do that. I'm keeping every single one of you. I'm not even telling him what I'm going to do. He's going to ask me. He's going to say, I told you to do that. I know what you told me. Every single person of you is going to stay in the job you're in. And I'll tell you this. We're going to make this company so successful with the people they thought they wanted to fire.
Yeah.
Those people were so motivated. We turned that company around in no time.
I know. So what was it another 3-year agreement? Do you remember?
No, because
Grandma went allow?
Marisa says, you said 3 years last time, 2 years. So she put more pressure on me than anybody. She said 2 years.
Right. 2 years to turn around the company.
In less than 2 years. It probably took me about 3 quarters or so to start the stock price from going up because those people were so pumped up.
Right. To finally do it. Yeah.
And I said, I want to tell you something. I'm here. You know my story. And you know what? They all check the last job you've had. They do that when they go to a new company.
You saw what you did at at&t.
A lot about me. I keep my word. But I'm not going to be here till 9 o'clock at night or 10 o'clock at night doing this job. We're going to be efficient. You're going to be efficient. I want you home with your families at 6 o'clock having dinner like I'm going to be home with my wife having dinner at 6 o'clock every night. We can do this job during the regular hours if we're smart and do it. And I took the billing. How do you do anything with billing?
In what regard? I mean, there's a lot.
You know how important billing is to a company?
Oh, yeah.
Why? Yeah. What can you do about it? And what's wrong with billing sometimes?
Well, I guess depending on the company, if you're billing, I'm trying to put myself in the picture.
Take any company. Company.
Well, the benefits of billing is the fact that you literally can see the numbers and you can see what's missing if you're going through missing numbers.
I'll give you my short take.
Go ahead.
We got 50,000 or more customers. They should get a bill, right? At the end of the month.
Right.
And in those days there was paper bills, but they should get a bill at the end of the month. In a perfect world, you send them a correct bill. It gets to them at the end of the month.
Right.
They look at the bill, they pay it, and you move on.
It. Yeah.
That doesn't happen. What happens?
With billing, usually they take it, they can't pay it.
No, before it even gets there.
Before it even gets there?
You got mistakes with the bill. What happens if you get a credit card bill? What happens if you get a mistake on your credit card bill?
You call them and then
you're late, maybe
and then you have to check.
It's time, but it's not being paid on time. So I went back to the root causes. The root causes are, why do people not pay bills? Now, if you got deadbeats who are going to wait till the last minute, fine, we're going to deal with them. But it can't be our fault that they're not paying the bill. So I said, we're going to have a billing system that's going to be super perfect. It's going to go out on time. And when the customer gets that bill, they're going to have X amount of days to pay that bill. If they don't pay the bill, then we have a process. And we worked at. That's a simple part of what I mean. I got a company.
It's a simple part, but it's a main part of your company because it's a credit.
But the thing is, the reason I mentioned it, so many people think that solving some problems in business are all complicated because people make them complicated. Give me a process. Tell me what we're attempting to do. We're attempting to bill. Show me a chart of the billing process, and let's look at the flow there, and we'll see where the problems are. What happens if you have a person who's not paying their bill? You got to call them. Yeah. You see, there are costs there. So all the things that there's time and cost. So you usually have, let's say, 30 days to pay a bill. Sometimes you do some things with that, the date that the bill is due and everything. You can improve your numbers. Right. we had people who came into our offices to study the processes that we put into place. To me, all of this was simple. You notice I'm not talking about
Yeah.
science here.
You're just
I
doing-
did it in engineering. I did it in finance. I did it in billing. Every unit of those 10 people, I said, every unit, we're going to look at the process, and we're going to see what we're doing now and how we're going to make that more efficient. And we're going to do it together. And by the way, your bonuses are going to be reflected in that.
Right, you did the same.
And they
Not that they
also
did
got
it.
the stock. So I made it. It's not oversimplified. It's not simple, but to get the morale of the people and get them focused on the things you want them to get focused on, that's what I had to deal with as
Right.
a leader. I didn't know one single person in that whole unit. 15,000, and I was traveling around the world, taking your grandmother to Brazil and Argentina, people who didn't even speak the same language. And by the time I got to these places, they heard about me and they said, "We know what this guy's doing," and they started doing the same thing. And you don't have to fix everything all at once.
Right.
You're never going to be perfect, but there are things that you can do in a company just by getting the people who are responsible for the company to do a better job.
Right.
And a better job doesn't mean, I said, it doesn't mean lose your vacations, stay here till 8 o'clock.
Overtime.
Come in at 6 o'clock. It is not, that is not what I'm talking about. We can be more efficient and we can do it together. And the way we're going to do it as a team is that we're going to put a bonus system in as a team.
The incentives. Yeah.
And a team meaning one bonus system across the whole team, so that if you're not in the billing system, but you're in marketing, you see, the marketing people can slow up billing
Right.
if they don't get the data to the billing people. I want everybody to share in the bonus. The billing people, the marketing people, everybody. The engineering people who are working the systems, I want everybody to be invested in that system. There are only 8-10 systems we're going to really be worrying about. I'm not talking about 500 systems.
So you turned this company around in 2 years.
Yeah. So the stock market jumps,
Right.
and it jumps dramatically. And the people from Wall Street are coming in to talk to me because I was the
How the hell did you do it? Yeah.
How the hell did you do that?
In 2 years.
And I always had the same thing. It's pretty simple. I just got the people.
For those of you that don't know.
I'll show you a book that the people put together when I left with their pictures and everything in the stock.
Oh,
the
that's
things
awesome.
They wrote about me when I left, and so I'm there in 2 years, and everybody wants, the board of directors wants me to stay.
Yeah. I don't think Grandma was a fan of that.
Grandma, here's what I did. The deal with Grandma is every week we went home on a weekend. I never had to work weekends.
Oh yeah, we forgot to mention you're not in New York.
No, I'm in
You're
Atlanta.
down in Atlanta.
Yeah. No, I had according to their requirements, I had to
Be in Atlanta. Yeah, we forgot to mention that.
So I'm in Atlanta, and I take her to dinner every night. We go to shows, we go to the opera. I'm home by 6 o'clock. She's a great movie lover. We went to Johnny Rockets, which
Yeah.
she loved. So she was home with her family on the weekends. The kids are grown now.
Yeah,
they're out.
I'm born at this
and
point.
all of that, and you're not going to be babysitting all the time.
So you started at Equifax. How old were you?
I was in my after.
You weren't 60 yet, were you?
No.
So, okay, so Lil, you.
It sounded like we were old, but we weren't.
Yeah, I
We
know.
were
Isn't it
young.
wild? Like
Yeah.
you've accomplished a crazy amount of stuff before 60.
That's right.
So
Virtually everything was before
was
60.
60.
So that enabled me to have a life with my wife that was romantic. We would go away on weekends.
Right.
We took all our vacations. We went on secret vacations all over the world. I never left. You can contact me. No. I'll be on vacation.
Yeah.
You can handle it while I'm not here.
Right.
Grandma was very happy. She had her own money, but she used all mine. That's
how that works.
We had two kinds of money: family money and her money. She used the family money for things. She was smart. And when I got home, we used to go to movies during the week or go out to dinner. I'm not a guy who waiting to get home to mom's big dinner. That doesn't turn me on. I will go out for a slice of pizza with my wife and go to a movie rather than do that. And that's what we did. If your grandma and I didn't see 1,000 movies, we didn't see one. We went to movies
like crazy.
And this is when, in Atlanta, we went to the finest restaurants, and then we go to movies. She loved movies, shows.
Right.
We traveled. We took all our vacations. We went to, around the world. She had a ball. The children came to Canada, visited us. Children came to Atlanta. It was a perfect time. And it was a success story that people have said that would put this one in Canada to shame, because the problems in Equifax were more complicated, more deeply felt, and much larger than I had in Canada.
That's what I was going to ask you, because
3,000 people in Canada,
so,
15,000.
So what was you? I mean, the two incredible things that you did was you turned not one but two companies around in under 5 years, which is pretty rare. But my question is, between the two, which would you say was harder?
Well, I learned a lot in the first one, and I applied it
to the second, right? Which is why it was probably faster.
So it made it a little easier. But the Canadian company, I basically had traveled in Canada.
Right.
That's a big country, by the way. So I traveled all over. And Grandma went with me every place I went.
Right.
And so we fixed Canada, and then we had to go down to Buenos Aires. We had to go down to, and we went to Europe. We went to Paris. We had offices all over. And so that took me a little over 2 years to do that. A lot of these guys who come into those companies who are brought in, like I was brought in, they fix the company very temporarily.
Yeah.
What they do is they cut costs, and costs sometimes get into the fat.
Yeah, and it doesn't fix.
They just take their money away. My theory was, I'm going to work with these people to get the best out of these people, to find ways that we're going to improve processes, cut waste, and give them the incentives to do this themselves, that I don't have to watch them. So I did that 1, 2, 3 system with all the companies, which said, if we make this number, you're going to get a 10% raise. Right. But tell me how many people would say they don't want the opportunity to make another,
more money.
The 20 or the 30. Well, what do I have to do then? All we have to do is find numbers. And my numbers were not gained in either one of those companies by getting rid of
someone
people.
else. Yeah.
Getting rid of people. That's what they do with these companies.
Right.
They cut headcount. Okay. So you had something.
Yeah. So obviously you took what you learned from the at&t to Equifax. What would you say you did differently between the two?
Well,
because you still use the Unity and the incentives, but what was different?
The important thing was a lot of it was the same. That surprised me, because I didn't know what was in store for me. But when I looked at it, I said, what are we dealing with? We're dealing with people on both sides. We're dealing with systems both sides. We're dealing with customers. I was looking at the similarities rather than what's different about it. Yeah, the billing system is different, but so what? A billing system is a billing system. We want the bill correct. We want it on time. We want to get the money on time. So I found the second one, which everybody thought it was going to be very easy, very much
difficult, right? Yeah.
I did it faster and easier, and so much so that they wanted me to have larger role in the company,
right.
And I told them no.
Yeah.
They wanted me to.
So I'm going to kind of stop you there just for time's sake, because I still have tons of questions, but I don't think we can get to all of them tonight. But so you finish this, you're retired, because at this point, I'm sure other companies that are failing are reaching out to you because they're like, "Holy crap, this guy did this in 2 years."
Well, that's exactly what happened.
So I'm sure you got maybe even hundreds of like.
Well, I did another company.
You did a third company after that? Oh, I mean, hold on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which one was this?
Yeah.
Now, see, something.
Still-
Now, hold on. Did this one not go very well because you don't talk about this one?
No,
Okay.
it's got. You'll be interested in knowing it because it's kind of a secret company.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm sure every grandkid you have right now is going to watch this and go, "What?"
Well, I don't know. One of the biggest in my job there at Equifax, there were a lot of people and on Wall Street who were interested in that because that's what they're interested in. They were in companies, stock,
Yeah.
etc. And they come down, and my name got around. I had some interviews in New York. They flew me up there, and there were a bunch of little companies, all the big companies on Wall Street. There were 20 of them.
Mm-hmm.
They have a very serious problem. Then they had it, and they still have it today. It's called money laundering. You know that.
Yeah.
You had no idea that I had anything to do with that.
Are you allowed to talk about this? Or?
I never told anybody.
Right.
No, it's between us.
Yeah.
Right now.
Do you want me to cut this out from the podcast? Or?
No,
Oh, okay.
We can trust all these people.
Yeah. Well, if you want to cut out, as I said.
No. Money laundering is a huge problem. It's very difficult to
Control.
check money, control or check the money all over the globe. Money and
Offshore
You're not
money.
gonna offshore. That's where it is.
Yeah.
If you're making some illegal money in Spain, in order to spend it in the United States, you've got to launder that money.
Yeah.
It's all about what this Joe Biden thing was with his son. That's all that.
Whoa, bringing politics in, Pops?
No, but that's
Yeah.
the system that works.
Yes.
You get some money it's questionable. I'll use the word questionable.
You can
for
use
something
expat.
to
Yeah.
do. And you got to get it someplace without the government finding out. And the government then finds out for a couple of reasons. If it's illegal money, they want to know where it came from, and they might want to put you in jail for that. The second thing is they want to tax it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's what I was about to say. I think there's two forms of money laundering, and the most common one nowadays is when people were offshoring money on Wall Street, right? So to your point, it's very easy to do. Most people use the expat laws to try and get around a lot of the tax things, which I'm sure you had to deal with.
Yep.
So
But that's what this company was built. So I had to build it from scratch.
So this money was to. So this company was to stop money laundering.
To find out who the money launderers were, and bring them to heel. They report them to the government because it's a crime.
So is this a government job technically, or
No.
no? Okay. So it's
It
a
was
third party.
all these 20 companies on Wall Street who had this problem, who said, we can't solve this problem individually, it's just too big.
Is it problems not just throughout the? Is it just? Are they talking about money laundering within their own company, or with? Okay.
No.
Just.
It's their customers.
Yep. Gotcha.
So you're in Argentina, you're a senator in their House of Representatives over there, and you want to ship some money because you did a favor to somebody. Now that's what the government's all about: doing favors, getting big donors to give you money. Sometimes that's legal, sometimes it's illegal. Now the Hunter Biden thing is a classic case of how you might do money laundering. You have a person.
Allegedly, just so
could
YouTube
be.
doesn't flag
Could be.
it.
if you believe what the government is saying, is that there was money that was brought through influence peddling, they call it. Influence peddling. We have government officials here who have influence over the government here, and we could help you. And if you're in the Ukraine and you need problems solved through our government, we can get that done because we have somebody here to do that. Now, if you do that, there's implications. Now, what is the influence that you're trying to sell? The other is, what do you do with that money? Because it should be taxed.
Right.
And if you actually report it and tax it, they know you're committing a crime. So that is rampant all over the globe. It is rampant. So what he's accused of, and I'm not saying he did it, is so normal
Right.
that people are doing it as we speak.
Right. So
But
what?
the government is trying to track it down.
Right.
So in order to do this, these companies said, we can't do it individually. So we're going to put these 20 companies together, and we're going to put our resources and data systems and try to track this down together
Right.
and work with the government. And there were a number of people that I see on television who are guys working with me in that company.
Was this a little bit of a secretive?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
It wasn't. It's not a company that you find on the stock exchange
Right.
or anything like that. It was. I had experience, so I built a company with data processing people, people who would collect information, et cetera, whatever I needed. Built that company, and we started to track down money launderers.
Gotcha.
And if you look it up, it's called Regulatory Data Corp. And it doesn't have very much information because nobody wants you to know about it.
Right. Which makes sense. I mean, you're trying to.
So I ran that because people heard about me at Equifax.
Right.
And said,
But
"We'll
that wasn't
it."
like a failing company or anything. It was
No,
just
no,
they needed
it
a
was
strong.
startup. It was a startup.
Wow.
It was a startup. And I did it for 3 years. I worked out in New York City. And my clients, my board of directors would meet monthly. We talked about how we're going to fix things. We built a data system, and it's still in progress. Now,
Wow.
you don't know that kind of stuff because who wants to tell the money launderers what we're going to do
Yeah,
to
right.
stop them from doing it?
Right.
But this guy that worked for the FBI, he was on Fox News this morning, as a matter of fact. He was one of the board members there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, all these guys were young guys on Wall Street working with me. Now they're,
Right.
big shots.
Very successful.
And we put that process together, and I said, I'll do that. I'll do that for a couple of years, and that's it. And then after that, I taught at Fordham.
Right. Well, we won't go into your
No.
later stuff. I know it's all interesting, but
No.
just so you know, we just did 3 hours. You are officially the longest podcast I've done by over an hour.
Maybe we would have shorted down to about 15. No,
So,
well, I tried to explain it in
No.
a way that you understand.
Yeah, again, I see this more as doing this for your great grandkids that can watch the video. So,
I appreciate that.
the last question I'm going to ask you, because again, I want to talk more, but I unfortunately have to get going. A lot of our viewers maybe will be entrepreneurs someday. Again, great grandkids that are watching this. To be the CEO that you were, which is a very rare specimen of CEO who doesn't fire people, turns a company around in record time, has books written about him. What kind of what would you recommend to them? Like, what is it that you think needs to be done to run a company? Not a failing company, but I'm starting a company. What is it? What do you have to have?
Well, I wish that, that's sort of...
Was it an easy answer?
The secret potion,
Yeah.
or the secret sauce that everybody's looking for.
Right.
And they want it in a small box in a nice, neat bow. There's a lot of things that, I wrote a few things down that, first of all, you need leadership.
Of course. Yeah.
Without leadership, it'll never happen. It's not going to bubble up, and the company all of a sudden succeeds because all of the people in the company got together and said, hey, we can fix it.
Yeah.
If the leader doesn't do it. So, who are the leaders? And how are they selected? What attributes of leaders would you look for if you
Right.
had a company now and it was failing and you came to me and you said, what characteristics of leaders should I be looking for?
I'm going to alter my question a little
Good.
bit here. So, just because I think to your point, you can rattle off a bunch of things, but I don't know how much of being a leader is taught and how much is just personality or whatever.
It's a combination of
Right.
them all.
So let's say you have someone who's not really in that leader position. Like it's not that they don't have it, it's just maybe not in their nature. They can't do all the things that, right. How do I, someone who's not a leader or whatever, become where you are? Is it possible, would you say?
I think it is.
So what does that person need to get to where you are?
I think, first of all, I'm not a genius. I know
That's the
I'm
big
going
one.
to disappoint you by saying that, but I'm not a genius. I'm a bloke. I'm a guy who is practical and had some great background. Number one, I got a lot of leadership training. That should not be minimized. Some people think anybody can lead, anybody can lead. That is not so, in my judgment. So just learning how to be a leader and you get trained to do that. And then there's a couple other things that I wrote down just for quick, quick bites, so to speak.
Yeah.
There are recruiting firms that specialize in just picking out people like this. You know that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you want to get the answer to that, and you want somebody to do that, just call them up. I got the number. and
Right.
and they try to find people like this. When there's an opening for
Right.
a CEO today,
Yeah.
right now, some company says they call this company up and they say we're looking for a new CEO. It's secret,
Right.
okay? And they have lists of people. I'm on that list of people, but
Right.
when they call me, I'm saying
I'm 80. I'm almost.
The thing is,
Yeah.
they search out people who have certain characteristics as leaders.
Right.
I hate to say that everybody can't do this, but it's not the toughest thing
Right.
in the world. So I put a few things down. First of all, leadership considerations. This is why I put it. You have to have a certain degree of education.
You have to have knowledge
on certain things.
Yeah. You don't have to be an expert in everything, but you have to know your company, right?
If you are an expert in everything, I think it causes failure because you spend all your time showing off that you know how to build the widget. Let that guy do that. You can help, but the rest of the stuff that you should be doing is motivating people, training people, rewarding people. All of those things are a huge job. Very few people get the training when they are put in those jobs. How would you get that training unless somebody gives it to you? You're not going to read it in a book. So this noble enterprise was intended to help that. So to me, you have to evaluate yourself and say, am I a leader? Do I think I can be a leader? Some people will tell you right off the bat, I'm not a leader. I don't want that responsibility. So you got to evaluate yourself and then
Right.
you say, yes, I can be a leader. I need some help here, but that's a start.
Do you think anyone could be a leader?
Sure.
Yeah, I agree.
No, I mean, when I say anyone.
If you want to be, I think
If you want to be a leader and you do some of these things, I would say, if you got to get some education.
Mhm.
You got to evaluate. There's leadership training. I went to leadership training. I went to leadership training at Rutgers and other places. This is not complicated stuff. You might go to a 3-day or a week training, or you might take it in graduate school.
Right.
But if you think you can lead a company and not have leadership qualities, I think that would be pretty difficult.
Yeah.
So leadership is number 2. I think you need a people orientation. I think that what that means to me is you have to put the people first. If you want to put
that kind of orientation.
Yes,
It's like,
yeah.
what do you-
yes, you orient people, but the point, if you're not a good people person, this is not going to work because
Yeah.
people will pick you up as a fraud.
Yeah.
You're going in. I know this clown is coming in. He's making big bucks. He's going to bust our ass. He's going to do this, that, and the other thing. Be the hero. Take all the credit. Make the money. Get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
But you have to not be that person. You got to say, my job is to help these people do well.
So
Now,
that
if
we
I
all
get
do well.
if I get the reward that I get out of that, that's fine. That's what's intended. And I have a contract that protects me to give me something like that. But my job is to make sure these people are successful. I still get calls from employees at both those companies who call me and thank me for what I did to help make their careers. I had a guy in Equifax, just one thing I did for him. The chairman didn't believe he could be the head of the engineering department because he was not an engineer. Now, I headed up engineering departments at AT&T. I am not an engineer. There's different kinds of engineering.
Yeah.
This guy said, you forced the issue. You got me that job as an engineer. You changed my entire life, my family, my everything, by getting me that job that I was equipped to do. This is what I mean, doing individual things, but doing big things. So education, a little experience. I mean, if you're going to walk out, you wouldn't put anybody walking into that job if he's the boss's son and
Right.
say, my boss's son can do it. You try that, you're going to go down the tubes. You got to be results oriented. I look at these people in the government. They never talk about what they accomplished. I just want to know. You said you were going to do this. Show me the numbers now. Did we do it? Did we miss? And then we can talk about what lessons did we learn, etc.
Right.
But you have to have a mentality that says, I got to prove to somebody that this thing is working. So that's why you go to the, like, people say, how do you do something about the morale of organizations? I told you, there's a Hayes survey. You give a survey to your people. They tell you how they feel.
Right.
You look at these things and you say, can I fix those things? And if I can't, and then I'm going to give another survey. I took a survey that was at the bottom of the pits and put it near the top in a short period of time. And I'm not saying rush these things. You have to have a little patience. But you can't take 10 years to do these things.
Right.
I did them in 3. Okay. You might need some training, right? I talk about results.
Yep.
Training. You got to have somewhat of a personality.
I put that under leadership.
Yeah,
like I think you have to have a little bit of a personality to be even in the leadership position.
Yeah, some people love to be in their office. They lock their door. They don't want anybody in there. They want to read all day. That's a form of leadership that I don't subscribe to. I walk around. I take my jacket off. I'm walking around and talking to people, and I'm saying, "How are you? How'd you do this weekend? How are the kids doing?" And get to know them. It's stuff. So personality matters. Now, how much do you weight all of these things? So I put a number of these things down for people to just think about. Some people are, if you're looking for somebody, you would look for a record of success. The reason I was picked up by other companies was that I had a record of success, and people said, he did this here. That's not necessarily that he can do it here again, but he's got some records, and let's take a look at this guy and figure out if we take a chance, because everything here is risk. We're going to pay a guy a lot of money, a lot of money to do this, but if he's good, he's worth his weight in gold. I brought millions and millions of dollars into that company, into the employees, into the shareholders in just a little over 2 years. And it wasn't rocket science. Nothing I'm saying today has anything to do with algorithms.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. More. I said, some record, people say, you go in, how long do you take, you're going to take to fix this job? That's the question I would get from the newspaper. So, well, how long will it take you to do? You got to be short-term and long-term. Some things you go in and you say, yeah, the plumbing in the bathroom you've got water all over you got to do it today. That's not, we're not going to wait. This thing we'll do a little later. When I was talking about the pins, that's I go to the board of directors, I said, I'd like to strike a pin for AT&T Canada. I want these people to be proud. And you saw what I did with it. I saw these people who had their heads down because they were losers, and it was all over the newspapers, how this company was doing so poorly. Would you go and say, oh, I work for that company? No. All of a sudden, they're wearing pins saying, I work for this company. And that's a sales tool. So little things like that. So, communication. I communicated, and you can do the same thing. Nothing I'm saying here, you can't do. In writing, speaking, I like the old concept of leading. They call it walking. Managing by walking around. Have you ever heard that concept? Yeah. I called it leading by walking around. You're the CEO. You can do whatever the goddamn you please. If you're going to have a cup of coffee, why don't you go out and walk around and go to the coffee that's near the sales organization over there, so you can, be a part of this team. It isn't like I'm in my pyramid here. I'm God, and everybody has to knock on the door to get in.
Right.
So personality matters. I'm not saying everything this should. If you don't have these things, you're not going to be successful. But these are the things I thought helped me, and I saw the people I would want to work for. And that's the way you got to.
Right.
These are the people, and then you also have. I said communication skills. You'll have values and ethics. Values and ethics. Now, how do you show values and ethics? When you're going to get moral problems in an organization, and how you deal with them, you say, listen, no, we could make some money. We've got to cut our over here. Nobody's going to know the difference. The government will never catch us. No way. Is it right? Is it honest? We will do it. If it is not, we will not do it. And we will have values. So I had an incident, and it's reported in that book, I used to go on sales calls. Guess what? I'm the CEO of a large company. And the salesman, I had a word out to my salesman, anytime you have a big sales meeting and you want me to meet the salespeople in this other company to show the flag that I'm interested in this account just as well as I will go over with you and we'll meet these people together.
Right.
CEO to CEO. Okay, so I go over to this meeting with these two women to a sales meeting, and we have this beautiful meeting. And they like it. I'm there. They're going to, buy our services, etc. I go back to the office and I get a call, and one of the sales woman is crying. She says, "Bill," they all called me Bill. They didn't call me Mr. Catucci. I was always Bill at the CEO level.
Right.
And like I said, these people, as soon as you left, they were so ugly and so angry, and they got, I don't know what happened to them or what they did, but it was so insulting to us. I said, oh, here's what I want you to do. I want you to say goodbye and come back and tell them we don't want to do any business with them. I usually used to put guidelines so that we didn't go over.
Yeah, it's okay. That's on me because I didn't.
Again, talking like the CEO, you're not going to get up and leave, and I should be the one to say, time's up because we said it was this. But I was delighted to talk to you and help
Again,
you.
I apologize. We have to cut it short just
Don't
because of all the
apologize
other
to me.
stuff. But
You never have to apologize.
the only thing I want to end on, Papa, is obviously on behalf of all your grandkids, grandma. I mean, we're all incredibly proud of what you've done. I mean, we love talking about it to people. So again, this was great for. As I said, this is going to go on for many.
This is for somebody else.
Yeah.
See, I need people like you. Why do I need people like you? You're the future of the family.
Yeah.
And I did this purposely. Certain people in the family, I felt, everybody has their own talents, or leaders and motivators, and will carry the torch. Yeah. And so in the future, you're going to be knowledgeable about things and why these things happen. Like most people don't know what I'm talking to you about.
Right.
Right? You're going to say, it wasn't like I shot an arrow in the sky and hope I hit something.
Right.
I had a plan. I had a plan for the family. I wanted all my children to go to get educated. And you know how I did it. I said, you can go to college, all of you, but you have to pay for your own board.
Right.
And
that was done
at that time. And they all worked. They paid for their own board. They had every one of them's terrific people. They get along, but there were certain values that I expected as a father. And if you don't tell certain people these things, they'll never know. They'll wing it, or one person will break it all up. If I didn't say something like this, Billy says, "No, I'm going out with my friends." No, Bill, you don't understand. We're a family. There are things that you will develop yourself.
Right.
These are just ideas and guidelines. Right. You worked for me. How you treat your spouse is the number one thing. She was the most important thing in the world to me from the day I met her until she passed away. You heard what she said when she passed away. He was with her and Robin because they took care. Notice how her children all stepped in.
Yeah.
And stepped in here. That doesn't just happen. I got people who never see their children. My children are here. I never have to ask a thing. Your father, look what he does. So that didn't just happen. So they said, "Mom, what did you think of your life? Would you like to know if you were married to a girl?" Because you don't have conversations like that. Honey, I've got nothing to do. The TV's thing. Let's talk about it. No. What did you think of your life? She said, "I married the man of my dreams." It's a good start. I had the house of my dreams. I had the family of my dreams. And I saw the world.
Yeah.
Pretty good for starters, huh?
That's an incredible accomplishment because not too many people could say that.
That's what she said to my daughter. She didn't say it to me. But she would have. That's why the book is important to me.
Yeah. Because
I want to capture her so that she never is forgotten for generations.
Yeah.
She won't be forgotten with you. But you don't know all the things that I know. And the reason I want you to know is that you'll appreciate her even more.
Yeah.
She was an angel.
Yeah. So, to end it here, I just want to say, so we have the two books, that I will post the links for down below. And then for any future grandkids and great-grandkids and great-grandkids that watch this, there's also a book that you are currently writing basically about your life story. And that's a book just for the family. So by the time this comes out...
I'm going to leave it to you to make those judgments. You know why? Because my leadership style has always been, if you ask somebody to do something or they do something, let them do it.
Yeah.
And you don't go back and say, oh, you should have done it. No. Whatever way you do it is good for me. I trust you. I respect you. I'm proud of you. You're a wonderful member of this family.
Thank you.
And you're a leader. I mean, I'm saying some strong words here. I don't say this to everybody, because everybody doesn't have those qualities. But think of the family that we have and how we built it.
Oh, yeah. It's a unique family, no matter who steps in or steps out. Like, whoever's looking at it, it's very unique.
I look at Grandma. I pray to her every day. I just hope that I'm carrying on what she would want.
You are.
But she was perfect.
Yep, she was the perfect grandmother.
I'm not that perfect.
Yeah, you're close.
I was behind the scenes. So that's why it's on you. You're in charge.
Yeah.
Do whatever you like. Do nothing if you can, but I'm proud of the story. I'm proud of what
we all are. We all are proud of the story. So again, Papa, thank you. I know I'm sorry I have to get going. I didn't realize we were going to do 4 hours.
I worry about every single one. We can't help it. Yeah. Grandma and I had to worry, Gene.
Thank you, Papa. We'll end it there, guys. You know the drill with
Here's
that.
What I want you to do with this. You know what that means?
You're locking it in.
Lock it.
All right, thank you.
We don't have a regular. With somebody you care for, like I care for you.
Yeah.
You lock it.
All right,
that means
one more
I
time.
trust you.
Thank you, Papa.